Good morning, councillors, collega's, goeiemorgen, molweni. And also good morning to everybody streaming in from external digital platforms. And I just want to give notice of this General Council meeting of the Cape Agulhas Municipality, which is being held at the Municipal Council Chambers in Bredasdorp on the 31st of March 2022 at 10 o'clock. Kennis geskied hiermee van 'n algemene raadsvergadering van die Kaap Agulhas munisipaliteit wat die munisipale binne in die munisipale raadsaal in Bredasdorp wat vandag donderdag 31 Maart om 10 uur plaasvind. So speaker, I immediately hand over to yourself as the chairperson of this council meeting.
I thank you, Mr. Phillips. A hearty welcome from my side too. Before we begin, Alderman Jantjies, would you open with prayer, please?
Ons praat ons onverantwoordelijkheid en de raad is gemeenschap en met de aanpak van die problemen. Alle die mensen daar ons bij die zeggen, die beter anders is een bouwwees in de Jere, stem voor ons daarin worden dat wijzigheden en de leiding, maar ons moet oplossings verkeren te laten op de hele dag. We gaan dan met ons bereding vergaderen en mag elke besluit dat is niet meer voor die gemeenschap niet die goedkeuring bij te zijn. Zoals we nu denken dat ons niet dat we een waarde en niet maar meer is genaderd. De vijf mensen.
Dankie, raadsheer. Dames en heren, my agenda voor my is in Afrikaans en plek in Engels. So ek sal afwissel, maar as daar enig iemand is wat nie verstaan nie, asseblief steek net hand op. Ek sien immers nie ons Engelse collega's hier nie, so het gaan makliker wees. Aansoek om verlof tot afwesigheid, ek het geen ontvang nie. Dink almal is teenwoordig en dankie daarvoor. Onderhoude met afgevaardigdes, ander besoeke, is daar enige iemand wat iets...
Chairperson, maybe just an apology from the official side. Mr. Hendrik Kroon, Director Management Services, he is off sick, but Mr. Michael Dennis is standing in his stead.
Thank you, sir. Welkom, Michael. Onderhoude met afgevaardigdes en ander besoeke, was daar enige ene wat zoiets besoek het of bygewoon het, want ek het geen gekry nie. Dankie Marius, geen. Dan na die notules van die vorige vergadering voorgelê vir bekragtiging.
Before we start the meeting, this last thing was yesterday. I received a call, which might be not very important, but for us it's very important for the passing of Tyrone Waits. I think some of us we know him. That maybe even as you speakers, that maybe we can just bow our head and also think what he have done for the Cape Agulhas and also the Overberg region as well, also the region of Poland, because he has played his part and he have done what God sent him to do, and while he was still alive. I'm just asking and also say condolences to the family of Tyrone Waits and also Monique. I think we also know her very well, what he have done, if also in Cape Agulhas, and also what she's currently doing. I'm just asking the speaker just before we start, so that we can also observe that's a moment of silence in that regard.
Thank you, Councillor. Minutes of 31 January, council minutes. Anybody? Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ross. Natuurlijk van de speciale raadsvergadering gehou op 28 Februarie 22. Voorsteller om secondaat, allemaal het gelees. Voorsteller. Raadsheer Nieuwe en raadsheer Olwa. Baie dankie. Dit is vir kennisname, so ek aanvaar julle kennis geneem. De files van die komitee vergaderings vir kennisname ook. Die ICT steering komitee vergadering gehou in Februarie. Enige iemand wat ondersaaklik voorspreekend iets wil sê uit die files? Verklarings en of mededelings deur die voorsitter. Ek het 4 briewe van dank. Een van die laerskool bedaarstoor vir ons hulp wat ons aangebied het tydens hulle skoolbraai. Bewus daarvan ook van die Soekendal Akademie van Agulhas. Mevrou Sakto se keersmanne het gehelp daar met hulle dag. Dankie daarvoor. Laerskool bedaarstoor weer eens met hulle color run op 18 Februarie. Spreek hulle dank en waardering uit vir Agulhas munisipaliteitshulp. En dan die laaste een van die Boland Rugby Unie, wat ook net langs die president en die uitvoerende bestuur daar bedank vir die bydrae tot die sukses van volgende dag. Microfoon af. Hy sit homself af. Die tegniese mense het gesê ons kan bloot net in die microfoon praat sonder om vooroor te buig. Hy is blykbaar baie sensitief. So as jy praat, sit hom maar net aan dan asseblief. Funksies van die maand, ek weet nie van enige funksie nie, Marius, ek het niks gekry nie. Aanwys van afgevaardigdes, ek het geen gekry nie. Dringende sake deur die speaker voorgelê. Ons gaan nou, as ons begin, gaan ek verduidelik hoekom ons die agenda gaan herrangskik. In geval daarvan ons senior mense is wat uitgeroep word na dringende sake in die dorp, hopelik gebeur dit nie. Maar ons het ongeag besluit om net die rangorde bietjie te verander, om die dringende sake wat aan voldoening moet voldoen, compliance, dat ons dit definitief afhandel eerste. So die item 1145 sal ons in komitee hanteer, so ons gaan hom nie nou hanteer nie. Maar
Jammer spreker, net op daai punt. Kan ek sommer vir gewoon net aanleiding gee dat die hoof van die provinsiale rampbestuurseenheid, the head of the disaster management in the province, is coming to visit the area at 12 o'clock. And they also are looking at how they can assist from provincial. They've been sent by the minister's office. So he just want to meet myself as well as Mrs. Sapto, our disaster management officer, at 12 o'clock. So I will just excuse myself, but the CFO will then just take over the reins here. Thank you. So yeah, I'm not going to excuse myself for the meeting. I'm just going there, make sure that everything is okay, and then I'll come back. Yes.
Thank you for that, MM. Point number 9, terugvoering vanaf raadslede oor vergaderings bygewoon. Enige iemand wat wil inset lewer geen? Ja, ons laat hulle maar oorslaan. Ek sien uit daarna. Dankie raadsheer. Punt nommer 10, verklarings en of mededelings deur die uitvoerende burgemeester. Burgemeester, oor aan jou.
Baie dankie. Spreker, ek weet nie as die tyd ons toelaat en dit wat raadsheer Jantjies nou gesê het dat die raadslede in die afgelope paar dae baie vergaderings bygewoon het. Ek dink ons moet net so jy weet so 'n briefing het vir enige raadslid wat iets wil sê oor dit die situasie Want dit is terugvoering aan die volle raad, van almal was nie betrokke van die amptenare of die raadslede, maar ons net terugvoering gee as jy dit op 'n stadium sal toelaat. Maar van my kant af, I'd like to welcome each and every one, the councillors, the officials to this second meeting in the new year. Ek dink dit is the first meeting that we really want to focus on our, the start of the new era, and the era of renewed hope and innovativeness. En dit is nie, jy weet, wat nou met ons gebeur, what happened with us now in the past week, it's a start of a new journey, a new era, where we really want to embrace, innovativeness. And as I said in a meeting here in the week, that this thing that happened, en as enige ding gebeur nie verniet op ons pad nie. Dit gebeur met sekere redes op ons pad. En as hierdie ding nie, if it's not going to open our eyes and our minds and how we do our work as councillors and officials, that we really, connect to this, the era of renewed hope, new hope, and we need to think out of the box on how we can challenge or work around the challenges in not only in Cape Agulhas, but we are all part of a puzzle of the Western Cape and the whole of the country. I'd also like to welcome really Tracy Stone, that also went through a valley, in a deeper valley in her life, and also Sunel. En dit is van die amptenare werk waar we are all a team, and if somebody's not here, there's something missing. And really from my side, especially for Tracy, I think her heart is more than one heart is here in Cape Agulhas, and part of the council and part of the officials, that she also worked from out her circumstance at home or hospital. Thank you very much, Tracy, and you are welcome, really, and also Sunel, that the things that you went through and still going through. Our prayers as council are really with you too, and the families that's closely attached to you. Councillors, Speaker, and besides our own challenges in Cape Agulhas, we should be aware that some of us are closely connected or knitted to finding solutions every day, every hour in the past week. But I want to plead that, besides that we're dealing with our challenges, we need to focus on what we really started to do right in the beginning of our journey. There is the normal work that need to proceed. We have our 100 days, the priorities that was set up, was communicated with all the directors and managers, and there was a set date for the end of April. I just want to, put our minds, while we are focusing on the current and the immediate challenges in community, that the work must go on. And that we need, we said in the last meeting of the MACO, that there's dates that set aside, that we as councillors go and do site visit. I think on the 6th of April, that we go out and we see where we need to improve. And we must just go to that minutes of the last MACO, and we need in the next week, to put that in our diaries. We need to attend to current challenges, but also focus on what we do. We need to provide service to the whole of community, not all our efforts and on the current situation. We are a team, and I think this week was also really, if you see the positive side, that it was actually a team building that came on our road. We as councillors really, I felt that we came very close to one another, that we work together, that we talk to one another, and we can solve it. for every problem there's a solution. And that is how we dealt with it, I think, from our side in the past week. And I will say it with every council and Michael, this is the era of innovativeness. In any decision that we've been taken, that's a part of innovative thinking. Of what we dealt with now and what we're dealing with now, we need to think how we can bring about the change, how we can deal with the problems at hand at the moment with an innovative thinking of how we do it, not the way that we've done it 20 or 30 years ago. And also attached to the agenda is our new budget for 2022-2023 and the new IDP. I really think also with our steering committees, all councillors were present. We discussed, we differed, and it started here today. How are we taking Cape Agulhas forward as a team? And what we've learned is that we really, as councillors, the new innovative, how we can work together as a unified council, and putting sometimes, politics aside, we addressing community issues, addressing community needs, addressing community challenges in the way how we did it in the past week. We can work together. The Lord Almighty wants us to work together. One is, 2 or 3 is better than 1. And that is how we can deal with this as friends, as family, as a whole of our council. Our minds, our deliberations, we also focus on peaceful solution for the next couple of days in our current situation. But I think we will get to a point where we can look back and say we did it with the grace of God that was in our side. I plead for absolute unity in the start of a new era as council, and this is absolutely important for us to change the situation in Cape Agulhas. There's a lot of challenges that we discussed it in a meeting last night, that we will focus on, the line ahead of us. Lane meer reguit te kry. We know, we are aware of challenges. We are aware of illegal stuff happening in Cape Agulhas that we know of, that we never addressed. And that is some bold decisions that we had to take as council. We need to address the challenges, both on and man on how we can deal it with the support of our law enforcement, of police. Because out there's community living in horrible conditions, and we can't for a minute longer, turning the blind side of that. And I plead really, my friends and colleagues as councillors, for a unified approach on this thing. The budget, the new era really rely on how we deal with the budget. We will discuss it. We will approve it's a draft budget, and we will take it to our communities. If you feel that we need, and I will support really, if we see the different wards in our communities where the bigger challenges, lie, that we support, and we will go to the community and say, listen, yeah, that's a draft, and if you really see, and we're working with the CFO and his team, and how we can address some of the challenges current in our communities. With that said, Speaker, thank you very much, and I pray for your leadership and wisdom also in this meeting, and the MM, and all the officials. Thank you very much, and I hope that we will have a fruitful meeting today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you, Speaker. I think we can delve directly into the items. Speaker, there's a hand.
Speaker, I will agree with the Mayor's proposal, want it even to happen, as referring to the unity. A unified even council within the council, when we're going to speak with one voice. I think it might be rhetoric, say that we are going to do that. but in practically, that we need even to look at. From my side, I would like to thank you, MM, for your leadership and also the hard work that so far even the other councillors have done so long. And we are dealing with the scars of the apartheid and the stigma of the apartheid that we face with. And we can even decide even upon it. What is it that we decide upon when we're leaving other community outside? So the Group Errors Act that divided our own people with race, that's what we're dealing with. I think that when the poor become poorer and the richer become rich, those are the issues that I think my councillor also highlighted. Then we need even discuss the issue of the LED. How do we bring even the work, maybe opportunities in Cape Agalas, vice versa, even the business sectors, how do we bring them on board? So the ANC is trying to propose that what need to happen, let us have maybe a workshop summit where we're going to address these issues, where the job opportunity need to be addressed, and also the skills within our communities, the tenders that might be going out without even our communities even receiving those. And also, I would even surprise even this morning, because I thought that I'm not on a blame game that I'm trying even to allude on. I think that the MACO need us to give a direction. What is it? What assessment they've made? What does it need to be done? We are not in government municipality. We are here as a councillors, but at the end of the day, we need even to have maybe a proper direction as you guys are leading the municipality. Said that this is a role we need even to follow from now on. I know we need even to relocate maybe the non-national even back to where they should be relocated. But what is the way forward from the council side? So I would like to thank even the law enforcement, I'm referring to the police, the Human Rights Commission, the councillors, the church fraternity, and the leaders in different national and non-national who handled even this, and also specifically the councillor in Ward 3. Because this thing is not only for Ward 3, Zwelitshle. We must be very careful how do we deal with this thing. Because we might pretend even racial, but I don't want even to debate on that. Let us have maybe our ears on the ground, like the mayor is saying, and we felt even if it should be part and parcel like usually, initially, when the ANC was in government, the MACO, even the councillors were together. Whatever item that the MACO raised, then we have made the fair share, and even I think you can agree with us, Speaker, you were there. So now whatever decision MACO is leading, is taking, we might be excluded in such a manner that we don't communicate each other. We just do whatever that may be to be happen because we're governed. So the whole thing we need even to look at what can be done in that regard. Because from my side, as the ANC, we would like even to have even that approach going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Moketwana. Point made and point taken. I don't think you expect answers on all the points raised now, but in due course, I guess you can expect to get answers. Some of it is in the hands of the mayor, that's his call. But thank you for that. Alderman Jantjies?
Speaker, ek wil nie die vergadering langer ophou nie. Ek dink dan gaan ons hele dag gesels. Ek dink ons moet 'n dag uitsit om terugvoering te gee oor hierdie aangeleentheid, want daar het goeie goed ook uitgekom. En ek dink al wat ek net wil voorstel is dat ons 'n dag kort na die mense terug is, net laat ons terugvoering gee ook aan die amptenare goed wat in Kaap alles regtig gebeur het en waar die foute gemaak is. Baie dankie.
Dankie, Raadsheer Jantjies. Ek dink jy kan aanvaar, ons het volgende week 'n paar dae wat is nie so erg druk besig is die week daarna het ons strategievergaderings, maar dit sal goed wees as ons dit wat jy nou voorstel voor daai tyd kan hanteer. So ek dink ons is ad idem daarmee. Dink nie daar's iemand wat dit nie sal wil doen nie, maar ek
Yeah. Speaker, no, that's what Councillor Makatwana and Dirk has, Alderman Jantjies has just said, and what you rightly said, we're going to have 3 days that we're going to go out on a strategic session. We will discuss the 5-year plan, but a 10-year or 20-year plan. How are we going to take, as from now, Cape Colours forward? And what Councillor Makatwana just said, if we can come to the workshop and say, okay, what is said, we don't want to exclude. As I just rightfully said at the beginning, we will work together hand in hand as a unified council. We discuss who attend micro meetings, that's no problem. So we need to focus on that. And we've got an open discussion and a strategic session how we're going to take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Marius, would you check diaries and availability of the hall, etc., and see if you can come up with a few dates for us next week? And all councillors are welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Speaker. Councillors, maybe if we first, before we start with the agenda, I think the Speaker has mentioned before that due to the urgency and the circumstances that we're currently operating in, we also just don't want to sit in council for a whole day while a number of us, and specifically the councillors, are also required to assist with engagement within their communities. And that is why we took the liberty to try to rearrange the agenda. You will see there's a number of items on the agenda itself. So yesterday we had a discussion with the Speaker as well as the Mayor to see if we can first focus on what we call the legislative requirements, the statutory items that needs to be done within the set time frames. Like we all know, today is the last day of March, which culminates in the end of a quarter of council. There's a lot of legislative things that must be submitted before the 31st of March, and that is why we listed it. Now, unfortunately, we could only manage to forward you a list of the rearranged agenda. But Speaker, I want to make it fairly easy. There's a number of items that if you look at the recommendations, a number of those items the recommendation would be that it must be referred back to the portfolio committees. So that means there's no urgent, or I won't say urgency, but there's not a requirement of council to make a decision. In fact, council cannot make a decision if there's not a concrete recommendation from the portfolio committee. And those are the items we actually took out of the agenda, and we want to refer it back to the committees. And I can read it to you fairly quickly because that already will give an indication what we don't need to discuss today. So we've clustered. I'm not sure if some of you are on your laptops, you will notice that it has been forwarded to you quickly. If you just look at there are 3 parts. There's a part, which are the legislative requirements, which we need to discuss and need to make decisions. Then there are the B part that is also important, but some of them are just in the agenda for cognizance or for notifications. We don't need to have much discussion about it, so council can just make note of it. But we also don't want to leave it out, because if it's just for notification, then we might as well deal with it fairly quickly and fairly swiftly. And there are the C part, and those are the items that can be removed from this council. So if you can just go through the agenda quickly, and even if you just mark this is out, this is out, this is out, it will actually assist us to go through this agenda fairly quickly. Okay, the first one that can be removed is 11.7. It has to deal with the aansoek van municipale erwe, because there's still input required from the ward committees. So it won't be, council won't be able to make that decision without the input of the ward committees, and that is why let's first take it to the ward committees and then bring it back to council. The second one is 11.9, can be removed. That is the proposed development perimeters for the Old Miller Street corridor, which also need input from the ward committees. 11.10, that's a new layout for 670 and portion 373 in Waniskrans. Arniston also required input from the ward committees. And then there are a couple of items which I also requested the speaker that we need some discussion on management level, because we want to make a technical and concrete recommendation to council in terms of the decisions that is required from council. There is 11.21, which has to do with the illegal dumping strategy and the integrated cleanup plans. 11.27. The water connection of B Summers, which is being dealt with in terms of council policy already. The 11.31, approval of the short-term animal intervention strategy. Approval of the draft animal control strategy. 11.34, okay, sorry, the draft animal control strategy was 11.32. 11.34 is the Protection Services Division, the turnaround strategic framework or the turnaround strategy for protection services. There are still a number of implications that needs to be assessed and discussed and determined by management. 11.35, the deviation of the traffic fines performance for 2020-21. That will also still need some management input. 11.37 is the draft law enforcement strategy, which also requires significant input from management, because there was going to be some implications in terms of that. That's 11.37. Then 11.42 also the vandalism and theft strategy. That must also be referred back to management. 11.43 is the status quo of the resorts and the sustainability thereof. You will remember there was a report before council previously, and management also needs to determine what the implications thereof and specific time frames and what the statutory processes are to allow council or enable council to make an informed decision in terms of that. And then there's also 11.48 is the verhuuring of an onbenutte gebou. I think it's the kiosk where we had an application, but they should also be referred back to the portfolio committee. It's 11.48.
45 we move to in committee.
Oh yeah, I think the speaker has already indicated that the item of 11.45, it's a recommendation from the MPAC, will be removed to an in-committee agenda. So those are the, speaker, those are the items that can be removed. So people, the councillors can already maybe just make a note in their agenda. So we're going to skip that when we get to those. And the others we are going just to prioritize, but we might as well go through the agenda and not skip from the one point to the other. So because we need to in any case, but you will have an indication on your list which are only for notification, which we can go or browse over fairly quickly and just make sure that council take cognizance of it. Is that in order, speaker? Any comment from anybody? Any councillor?
Ek wil net vra speaker, dankie MM, dat ons al hierdie goedes, die grondaansoeke en die goedes wat verwys moet word na die wijkskomitee is. Dit kan ook toch die proces uitreik. Maar ek wil vra dat Marius moontlik 'n lys opmaak vir elke wijkskomitee wat verwys moet word na 'n spesifieke wijkskomitee, en dat wijkskomitees ook, ek ben in die hele lig van innovativeness, 'n spesiale wijkskomitee doen, en ons, daar sekere mense met 'n lang wag vir sekere goedes, en dat ons nie die proses moet vir uitreik nie. En dat ons ook dan sekere goedes kan ons 'n spesiale council meeting net vir 'n uur of so het, en op sekere goedes net as ons net 'n notulen kan kry, maar dat die wijkskomitee se insette is van die mees belangrikste. En dat ons dit kry, so gou as moontlik, spesiale wijkskomitee, verwys dit ons en dit ons spesiale IBK of 'n raadsvergadering wat in die mag van die IBK saam met die wijks van die raadslede. So laat ons net nie prosesse verder verleng nie. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Speaker. So if we can go to the first item, 11.1, which has to do with the adoption of the draft IDP for the 2022-23 to the 2026-27 financial years or period. I think councillors will be aware that there's a statutory requirement from each new council to adopt an IDP or a 5-year strategy for the next 5 years. And I think due to the timing of the elections, it made it a bit difficult, because at that time we also did not have ward committees in place. Ward committees have only been established now. There's a big requirement in terms of public participation for development of a 5-year strategy. And you would have remembered there was a previous report to council that we adopt the predecessors IDP. Predecessors mean that the previous council that came to an end on the 31st of or 30th of October, and the new council will start in the 1st of November. So council has actually already determined that we will adopt the predecessors IDP and extend it for a year. Then subsequently to that, and that was also on advice from provincial government and national government, but there's a new directive that came in after legal opinion has been sought by the different government stakeholders, and it was actually advised to all municipalities, instead of only adopting revise the IDP and amend it for a year, they actually want us to adopt a 5-year IDP. But that will also mean that the first review of the council or the 5-year strategy will be a full amendment of the IDP. So what we're trying to do is to keep within the legislative environment and the legislative framework, but also allow council, this new council, to determine its own 5-year strategy. So the next round of IDP, starting from the next financial year, will be like a whole overhaul of the predecessors IDP, if I can mention it like that. And that is actually what we just putting this before council. Tracy, I'm not sure if you want to add anything, or is that sufficient? Councillors do understand? Any questions, any points for clarity? Perfect. Thank you very much, Speaker. We go to 11.2. 11.2 has to do with the draft budget for the 2022-23 medium-term revenue expenditure framework. So I will give over to the CFO just to introduce us in terms of the budget. Thank you, CFO. I'm not sure if it's a mic. You're more than welcome to come and sit here in front, CFO.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think, once again, it's a requirement in terms of legislation that at least 90 days before the start of the new financial year, that Council at least adopt a draft budget. I know, like most of us amongst the table, and I believe also the community out there, they're quite aware of the weak economic growth, the situation that is there, that put more pressure on people's ability to pay and adhere to the municipal account. So I think for the municipality, what was quite important, it's always a challenging period. You know, we just had the COVID-19, and the impact and the effect of that is still visible in our community with job losses, you know, really to get the economy going. So all of that, we're not excluded from those processes as a municipality. And even now, with the war that is going on, Russia, Ukraine, it also impacts on us, but we're not sure in terms of what will be the final impact. We're looking at the fuel prices. We're looking at possible increases in our interest rate to combat inflation. So all of that have an impact on our budget, which we cannot really predict 100% going forward. Although we stick to what the Mayor always said, we need to look at to provide quality services and to strike that balance between what is affordable and what is expected from us in terms of our delivery. That is normally the key aspects that we need to look into, and also the context in how this budget being concluded. It's not the final, like I said, it's a draft. There will still be a process for the community to give input into the budget. But I must say, looking at what is in the budget at the moment, we really try to keep our rates, increases. For most of it, it's 4.8%, which is also the indicator from National Treasury in terms of our proposed tariff increases between a 4.8 and a 6%. And I think for the municipality at the moment, we try to keep it at 4.8% in most of these instances. Then also, I think what is quite important then, based on that, is just to mention it, is actually the NERSA, the electricity one. Unfortunately, on that one, we don't always have the control. It's regulated by NERSA. And as we're all aware, they already approved an increase for Eskom at 9.6%. Now, if you're looking at our solid salary component, you're looking at our bulk purchases, those two main cost drivers, almost 70% of our expenditure budget, which have a huge impact, and it's already more than the inflation rate or the estimated cost of the growth of 4.8%. So yeah, we try to stick to that, and we're still awaiting the final outcome from NASA, also providing guidelines to municipalities, and our tariff increases for electricity is also subject to final approval by them. So unfortunately, that 9.6% definitely play a major role in terms of how we prepared our budget, but we're proud to say that we kept it for this year. And we rather went the route looking at some of our expenditures, to come up with more cost-saving instrument, and only really rely on the minimum and the things that we know we can do and how we can do that. Then also, I think something that I just need to mention is on our capital program. It's the first time that we exceed 70 million rand capital program. Like I said, when you're looking at our long-term financial plan, our capacity is between 30 to 35 million. And I think for the past 2 years, yes, we're fortunate. We receive grant funding, which also is a large part in that 70 million, almost 33 million, that's actually from grant funding. But the municipality demonstrated via the infrastructure department that whatever money we get, we will be able to implement it and add value to our community. So yes, it's a huge capital budget that we need to look at. And it definitely also, despite our mix in terms of the funding, where we added external borrowing, to fund the capital program, we also made use of our own internal resources, the CRR. And I think that is the main concern. It's under pressure, but we will try whatever we have provided for now. We're pretty sure that we will not be able to deliver on everything that is requested out there and demand from the community, and even looking at our old infrastructure. But I can just mention on that 70 million, about 90% is for infrastructure, so it's for service delivery. So that, just in a nutshell, to say how we prepared the budget. Then secondly, I think we're also guided by National Treasury to say we need to ensure effectiveness in terms of our revenue, how we collect our revenue. So that is one of the key things. Also, an ongoing thing is looking at cost containment. And as I mentioned, we really cut on some of our expenditure based on our trends and the capacity how we spent over the years. But then there's also emphasis in terms of our maintenance, how we maintain our assets, really that we need to focus on that. And then also how we manage our free basic services. Water demand is also very high on the priority list. And I think we need to maybe find a way and to look at it, at the moment, all residents within the CAM area receiving free basic water up to the 6 kiloliters. And that is something that we need to address, you know, in looking into this based on the guidelines from National Treasury. So all what I can say, Mr. Speaker, yes, we not allowed to budget for a deficit. And I know there's more and more emphasis from National Treasury or guided municipalities, provincial Treasury, what we need to do in terms of the legislative framework. What I can mention, yeah, our total revenue for the 2023 financial year is 420 million rand, and then the expenditure is a 406 million rand, with a surplus before we're adding any transfer subsidies from the capital program. It's a 14 million, and then we also, like I've indicated, in terms of the capital program, there's about 31 million rand that we receive and invested in capital program. Then on the capital expenditure side, like I've indicated, you know, there's a 70 million from our own transfers. It's about capital CRR. It's about 19.78 million rand that we draw from that. On the borrowing side, it's about 19 million. And then on the capital receipts, it's a 31 million rand, you know, to add the mix to how we're going to spend that money. So, yeah, what we want, just to emphasize as well, I know we went through numerous budget committees, steering committees to get input, looking what are the important things. But I think as far as my concern, and I think with the consent of the executive mayor, I know we will never be satisfied with everything. This is what Cape Agulhas municipality can offer to the community to ensure sustainable service delivery, like I said, within our capacity, in a sustainable manner, and to ensure, you know, that we maintain our assets, and that we can keep up with the standard of service delivery. So this is the budget. I'm not really going maybe into more detail, as I believe it will also be communicated to our communities, what is in the budget, what portion to each allocation to each area as well, and for what services. I believe there will be more detail to that. But I just want to then, the report is there, it will be also there for public comment with all of that. I'm not really going in terms of the detail, in terms of the increases that reflect, but I can just mention, you know, when you're looking at the high consumer account of 1,000 units electricity, kiloliter water, about 30 kiloliter of water, and then also a value of a property of 1.5, and the average increase is about 7.5%. The others is slightly less, and the biggest reason for that increase is actually the Eskom account, which is normally 2/3 of your account. So that is more or less where we pitch. Unfortunately, like I said, we're not really in control of some of these things, but as far as from our side, we did what we could, you know, to include into the budget. So the budget tables, is actually 10 of them, is in the report, and it's actually reflecting from item 1.8, the annual budget tables. Then you will have the budget summary, you have the budget performance statement per vote, you know, for the various tables, up to table 10, and that is actually the budget that we present to council. I can also just mention one of the key requirements in terms of the SCOA the development, that is the Municipal Standards Chart of Accounts, that is a regulation we need to adhere to. It's a requirement that we draw the municipality, you know, from that, from the system, financial system, and we submit the data things accordingly. We still have challenges. National Treasury only submitted the final version on Friday in terms of the new SCOA version that we need to prepare our budget. We still have some challenges for alignment, and also in terms of the completeness on the non-financial items that we need to add onto this. So I just want Council to take note of that. Yes, we need to submit it by tomorrow, but there might still be a little work that we need to do. It's quite challenging, and poor Sean and his team in the budget treasury office, they actually work all around to make it happen. So this is the budget from the municipality side, and I'm not sure whether there's any other comment or input, and then I just want council then to consider the approval of the adoption of the draft budget.
Yeah. Sorry, you're more than welcome.
Ek haas my om te sê dat ek dink ons as raad skuld vir Sean, nou kyk hy weg, ek kyk af, so dit sy naam noem.
Ek dink is belangrik om ook nog hulle sterkte toe te wens. Dis die eerste hekkie voorstel die publieke deelname proses lê nog voor, so sterkte ook aan hulle in daai verband.
Ja, ek kan ook net so kommentaar lewer, dit is maar net nie, is eintlik 'n aanbeveling wat ons moet doen, jy weet, as ons nou geluister het na die tariewe en Eskom of Nersa se 9.6. Ek meen, dit is iets, aan die verhoging kan ons nou niks doen nie, maar ons as 'n raad moet ook probeer kyk na maniere, hoe kan ons hierdie gemeenskap, want dit lyk nie vir my, dit gaan goedkoper raak nie. Die gewone mense, en ek praat nie van mense in Swahilicha of in ons gebiede nie, die hele Kaapagallus. Jy weet, as jy sien besighede probeer op hulle manier vir hulle, kyk waar kan hulle bespaar met krag, maar die gewone inwoners van Kaapagallus, ons moet kyk of daar nie manier is wat hierdie munisipaliteit kan probeer krag win en ons netwerk plaas, dat ons dit kan deurgee na ons inwoners toe. Dit is iets wat ons regter moet kyk, dat ons op daai manier kan kyk of ons nie die kragtariewe vir die gemeenskap kan afbring hierby. Dankie.
Enige ander kommentaar of insette? Ek meen, soos Hannes gesê, dit gaan gepubliseer word en jy gaan deur jou gemeenskap nog gekontak word en dan moet jy jou antwoorde reg hê. Dankie Hannes. Jy soek, kan ons dit voorstel in 'n sekondant kry asseblief? Daar is twee hande, Donald en Ross.
Thank you very much, Speaker. 11.3, you will note that is now one of the items on the next portion of the agenda requiring cognizance and not much discussion. But this is the strategic risk register that we normally bring to council on a monthly basis. The strategic risks of the municipality has been identified, and we are just making sure that council are aware of what those risks are, what are the factors that can hamper effective service delivery within the municipality, and all the risk has been tabled in table format on page 9. 10 and 11 of the agenda, and in the management recommendation as well as the Finance and IT Services Committee is on page 12, which says that the 2021-22 strategic risks and actions be noted, and the quarterly reports be submitted to the relevant portfolio committees on the progress with the implementation of the actions.
Burgemeester.
Speaker, ja, baie dankie. Ek die probleem met dit is vir kennisname en kyk hoe die situasie in Kaapagallus. Ek wil net vra vir Tracy en haar span om dit miskien te hersien en hoe weeg ons dit, hoe skaal ons en veral dit in die lig, dit wat nou plaasvind en ook die nasionale wat so Dubula projek, wat sit Dudula is 'n Zulu word for meaning drying out onder die risk descriptions op daai lysie om die discussion om R risk item R545 protest action and civil unrest, of was dit met hersien van medium na hoog toe? Just my comment on that one.
Thank you, Speaker. I would also maybe, I think with regards to the protest, from law enforcement side, if they can provide us also with a report, because I think this is one of the biggest protests that we've had in Cape Agulhas, especially in Bredasdorp, in terms of what were the limitations, what were some of the challenges that they had, just to get an overview in terms of the department, because they are actually the department that deals with civil unrest. And I think at times that the department was overwhelmed and understaffed at times. And we would really like a full report from the department side in terms of to see what additional support that department needs. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Councillor. I think this is what we referred to earlier when there was a request that we have a meeting and that we put all of this on the table. We can do a proper SWOT analysis and list and take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. And that was also one of the reasons why I've requested that the law enforcement strategy be referred back to management, because obviously it was drafted prior to the unrest, but we now see it needs to form a core component of our law enforcement strategy on how to deal effectively and efficiently with when a situation like that arises. Thank you very much for that, Councillor. We'll definitely do that. So, Chairperson, Speaker, all that needs to happen now is that the management recommendation, I can gather that councillors are okay with it. It's just an amendment that the residual risk, is it the likelihood, Tracy, must be changed from medium to high. Tracy, do you want to comment on that, please?
It's all on the camera. Okay. Thank you, Emin. Yes, councillors, you're absolutely correct. You know, I think when we put this report on the agenda, none of us had any idea what was actually lying in store for us, you know, in the coming weeks. I'd just like to make mention of two things. The one is that the administration had a workshop, I think it was last week or the week before, where we actually revised all of the strategic risks. And it's also going to form an integral component of the strategic session that we're going to have. So I think that will give us a platform to debate it. And, you know, that platform, we can also relook at the likelihood and the rating and, you know, different actions as well. So just so that council can note that as well. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. So, maybe just a second, proposing a second. Yes, Chairperson, can we just make a practical arrangement? Michael, if you can just get a chair next to you. So if there's a comment that needs to get from one of the officials, they can just use that mic and use the chair, please. Thanks. Chairperson, the next item is 11.4. Dit het te doen met die onderverdeling van erf 609 Soetendal Akademie. Soetendal Akademie hier huidiglik 'n perseel van Cape Agulhas munisipaliteit, en ek dink in terme van die ooreenkoms, indien hulle dit wil onderverhuur, moet hulle toestemming van die raad kry in die verband. So daar is 'n bestuursaanbeveling. Ek dink die mense wat graag by hulle wil onderverhuur is Octotel, een van die fiber installation companies of fiber provision companies, en hulle vra dus in terme van die ooreenkoms vir die raad goedkeuring om te onderverhuur aan Octotel. Die bestuursaanbeveling is op bladsy 13 en dat die raad onderverhuuring van gedeelte F609 Agulhas aan Octotel Limited Propriety Limited toestaan.
Kan ek 'n voorstel kry? Dan is twee hande, burgemeester, onderburgemeester, baie dankie.
Okay. Kansellasie van ooreenkoms 11.5 van meneer L. Oktober, om die raad in te lig dat die voornemende huurder van gedeelte van R513 Natuur die huur van hierdie eiendom kanselleer. Ek sal merk dat daar 'n bestaande ooreenkoms met meneer Oktober vir die huur van 'n gedeelte van hy spesifieke erf wat hy nou kanselleer en die bestuursaanbeveling is dat die raad kennis neem dat die huur van gedeelte R513 gekanselleer is en dat die heffing effektief gestop word en dat ook dat die vorige raadsbesluit in die verband herroep word. Dit was ook na die Finansies en IT-dienste komitee voorgelê en hulle ondersteun ook die bestuursaanbeveling. Speaker.
Voorsteller? Raadslid Olwage en Raadslid Donald, dankie.
'n verdere kansellasie is item 11.6 where Untitled Chapter Cooperative het op 'n stadium, ek dink in 2015 of 16 het hulle erf gekry van Kapagallis munisipaliteit wat aan hulle toegestaan is vir 'n tydperk van 9 jaar en 11 maande. As mens kan aflei uit die skrywe uit was daar 'n hele paar statutêre prosesse, onder andere the surveying of the land, which took about more than a year, and subsequently the people who would have funded them has now reallocated that funding, which made it impossible for them to utilize the piece of land, and that is why they are now given notice to council and said that they cannot use it anymore because they don't have access to that funding, and that is why they're cancelling the contract. Chairperson, as aan.
Voorsteller, waar?
Net voor die voorstel, I think Chairperson, Speaker, it's quite unfortunate that we see these type of things, especially if we look what's happening in terms of the struggling with unemployment, and we see that funding for businesses is a big challenge, and this is something that really I think as council we need to look into, because I think if adequate support was given to this farm or the cooperative, I think then we could have supported this for them to continue. It's the first time that I'm hearing from Ukanyo cooperatives, and I think there are many opportunities where people can apply for funding, and I think there needs to be a register on the Kapagallis municipal website where people, institutions, organizations that give access to funding, where people can access it quite easily, and I think that's definitely that we need to look at. Maybe we can assist up-and-coming farmers, with that type of register, because sometimes they only know about a specific grant or specific place to apply for funding, and it's unfortunate that now this cooperative is no longer willing to be able to continue due to funding. So, yeah, that's just I want to mention that. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thanks, Councillor. Noted. I think we said earlier that this one has to go to the Ward Committee, so we don't need to vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you. 11.7 has been removed. We go to 11.8. Die verkoop van bates aan persone in diens van die staat. You would remember there was
There was some legislative pronouncements on the issue if people that are in the service of the state can participate in specifically procuring land or property from the municipality. There was a directive at one stage from Treasury specifically to the situation in Nesekwa municipality that also urged our municipality to take that pronouncement on the review, and we've submitted it for legal opinion. The legal opinion is on page 25 to 29, and that actually indicates that the circumstances in the Nesekwa situation is different from this in Kapagallis municipality, and we were actually advised by our legal advisors that we can go out on a public bidding process for the alienation of certain properties, en ek dink in hierdie stadium maar is dit spesifiek die eiendomme aan die agter die polisiestasie, en ons weet dis nou al 'n ding wat baie lank uitstaande is en ons wil graag hierdie ding na 'n kant toe dryf. So die regsopinie is redelik voor die hand liggend. Raadslede het die geleentheid gehad in die agenda, en dan sê ons basies net dat die bestuursaanbeveling dat die raad kennis neem van die regsmening soos voorgelê deur Krieger en Blighnout, dat die raad die volledige regsmening aan nasionale en provinsiale tesourie voorlê vir kennisname, en dat wysigings deur die prokureurs voorgestel wel in die raad se nuwe beleid weer bevestig word, sodat daar vanaf bladsy 8 van die beleid voorsiening gemaak kan word vir die verklaring van belange, because that is one of the issues that were quite pertinent in terms of the legal situation in this regard. So daar is die aanbeveling. Ek glo daar is seker 'n paar vrae van raadslede in die verband, Speaker.
Okay,
Die vraag is net, ek hoop nou net dat ons het verneem in ons komitee-vergaderings en ook by die begroting dat hierdie erwe gaan nou 1 Julie is. In die nuwe begroting gaan hulle op veiling of tender of wat gesit word. Dat ons nie dan begin nie, ons kan ons nou al begin. Laat ons die 1 Julie, mense wag al lang al voor, want as ons die 1 Julie gaan begin, gaan ons 1 Desember by die veiling of die ding. Laat ons begin nou met die proses. Dankie.
Okay, Raadseer Marius, jy sal so 'n notaatjie maak dat ons dit so gou as moontlik afhandel. Die volgende 2 gaan wijkkomitees.
The draft Cape Agulhas Municipality Zoning Scheme Bylaw, in the Cape Agulhas Draft Bylaw on Municipal Land Use Planning, and that is to consider the proposed draft zoning scheme Municipal Land Use Bylaw, and I'm either going to ask Tracy or Sonal if you can.
In short, it's just to, we need to be SPLUMA compliant by the end of this financial year, by the 1st of July. And that means we need to approve our town planning scheme and our municipal planning bylaw. We've got the drafts distributed. We workshopped our councillors on the 14th of March, and we need to get council's consent to start with the public participation for 30 days the public and 60 days the provincial minister. And then we will come back to council with the final 2 bylaws for approval during June. In short.
Questions? Kan ons 'n voorsteller? Newt en Ross, dankie.
Baie dankie raadslede. Ek dink Sonel kan sommer sit vir die volgende item. Dit is te doen met die Municipal Planning Tribunal, the appointment of external members for another term. Councillors will know that we've got an established municipal tribunal which comprise out of people from within the municipality and also specifically planners from outside of the municipality. Now their term is coming to an end, end of? Yeah, during this financial year, and we need to make a decision to either appoint new members or just extend the term for another 5 years for the existing members. So now, miskien kan jy net die raadslede 'n bietjie meer toelig daaromtrent.
Dankie mevrou Nel, enige voorstelle? Raadseer Jantjies.
Ja, voorzitter, ek ondersteun hierdie, maar ek wil ook hê dat ons moet in die toekoms, jy weet, hierdie komitee moet voldoen aan sekere voorwaardes, maar ons moet ook in die toekoms, en maar nou nie as ek hier is, vergeet daarvan nie, dat ek nie hier is nie, dat ons moet dit daarom verteenwoordiging van die gemeenskap maak net. Maar dit moet voldoen aan sekere vereistes. Baie dankie.
Dankie, raadseer Jantjies. Marius, jy neem kennis daarvan. Sonel, jy neem kennis daarvan. Het ons 'n voorsteller gekry? Nee, nog nie.
Nog nie. Ja, raadseer Jantjies het voorgestel.
Ja, voorgestel, dankie tog. En raadseer Tolwag, dankie.
Ja, 11.13 is die aanwysing van lede vir die aanstelling deur die minister van plaaslike regering vir die 2022 tot 2027 termyn vir die waardasie appelraad. Jy sal onthou daar was 'n vakature gewees op die waardasie appelraad en die vakature het juis ontstaan toe meneer Wennet Valentine afgesterf het en dit het 'n leemte gelaat. Daar was 'n paar geleenthede waar dit geadverteer word was. Marius het nou weer die vakature geadverteer en ek dink daar was net een aansoeker, Marius, en dis die aansoek of die CV van die persoon wat aansoek gedoen het is in die agenda ingebind. En dit is meneer John Albertyn, wat ook 'n plaaslike inwoner is. Hy het redelik extensive experience in specifically the property and estate agency industry. So die bestuursaanbeveling is basies dat die persone wat daarop was, advokaat Mandla Mdlulu, meneer Pierre Jean Gerber, meneer Henry Wiggins, wat 'n professionele waardeerder is, en dan dat meneer John Carl Albertyn as nuwe lid bygevoeg word in die vakature, en dan ook mevrou Marguerite Badenhorst, wat 'n plaaslike prokureur is, dat hulle vir 'n termyn van 1 Maart 2022 tot 28 Februarie 2027 aangewys word of aanbeveel word aan die minister vir aanstelling op die Kapagallas Waardasie Appelraad. Enigiets wat jy wil toevoeg, Marius?
Nee, wat munisipale bestuurder, is jammer dat ons net die een aansoeker gekry het. So die aansoek het gesluit die 28ste Februarie en ons het toen die een aansoek gekry. So ek sal dit onmiddellik verwys na die minister vir bevestiging.
Ja, ek wil saam met Marius jammer voel. Regtig waar, ek dink, soos ek sê, dat ek weet nie wat 'n mens kan maak nie, maar ek dink ons moet presies soos die vorige punt dit meer teenwoordigend maak en ons moet dit uit ons gemeenskap. Daar is niks verkeerd met hierdie persone nie en ek aanvaar hierdie voorstel ook, maar ons moet probeer maniere soek. Ons weet as ons adverteer laat mense kyk by maar eers die goed raakie. Maar ek dink ons het 'n plig ook op 'n manier om dit verteenwoordigend te maak van die gemeenskap. Maar ek ondersteun hierdie voorstel. Dankie.
Dankie Raadslid, is daar 'n sekondant? Raadslid Donald.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. 11.14 is the viability assessment for the establishment of a call center, which is to improve the recovering of outstanding debt between the 30 to 90 day period. So just to give some background around this, we currently have an external service provider which collects external debt by anybody owing the municipality, but it's normally handed over to this external service provider once that debt ages to 90 days. But it has numerous occasions have been raised at various platforms that we need to do more than our current effort to make sure that more revenue is being generated from outstanding debtors between the 30 and 90 day period before it is being handed over. And that is why we've done from the administration side a proper feasibility. There was at one stage the suggestion or the proposal to establish a dedicated call center for specifically this purpose to improve the debt collection between the 30 and 90 day period. And the viability or the feasibility assessment report has been included in the agenda. You can see there's a very extensive and comprehensive explanation within the agenda item and the report itself. So I will give councillors maybe to just have some kind of discussion, and also before we go into the management recommendation, which has also been tabled to the Finance and IT Services Committee. Chairperson.
Please.
Thank you, Speaker. As the MM said, there is a very comprehensive study from page 37 all the way up to page 72, and after reading it, studying it, and taking cognizance of the recommendations, The management recommendation says and/or, and I would like to propose that we give principal approval to the establishment of a call center with a specific focus of recovering the outstanding debts between 30 and 90-day period.
Thank you, Jan.
Speaker, ek dink op hierdie oomblik dink ek dat ons 'n baie goeie stelsel vir invordering van ons uitstaande skulde en ek wil voorstel dat ons volstaan eers daarbij en kyk hoe gaan dit aangesien hierdie mense nog nie lank, ek meen betrokke is in die raad nie, en dan kan ons kyk oor 'n jaar of wat of dit nodig is vir 'n call center vir hierdie raad, maar ek dink op hierdie oomblik is dit nodig. Dit wil ek voorstel.
No, I will agree with the proposal. That I'm trying to second the proposal that made Alderman Janjis with that regard. I think we should have done the assessment with the internal. Those are still internal. And we are bringing out other people in, where we've got maybe the internal officials that are doing their work. What is it? Even the collection is not that bad currently. We must just try and improve whatever that is in there. So I don't want to find out to bring other external when we have got other people in their position. I'm not saying their position not been good even for collection, but how much is going to cost the municipality? But I don't go through the process even with the document itself right now. But we are not supporting whatever proposal that's on the table right now.
Ek wil die eerste voorstel ondersteun dat ons die tweede deel van die management recommendation aanvaar. Dit is 'n proses, it's in principle approval. En dan wil ek graag hê dat die portfolio head of finance en met die amptenare dat ons as raadslede in diepte gaan kyk. It's only to improve. It's a mechanism of innovative thinking of how we do improve all our efforts. It's just the improvement. Daar is saak, ek ben op die oomblik die councillors moet aanvaar, ons het, daar's 'n lys van wat ons oorhandig het elke maand sedert 2020 aan die outstanding. As ons kom by 90 dae en mense het nie gehoor op die call center of die service center van Kaapa Galaxy, dan as Paul Swart afstallig is met 60 dae. Hy kry vriendelike oproep van die munisipaliteit of Paul, jy het vergeet. By die einde van 89 dae sal ons interne personeel, is Paul armlastig of kan hy betaal? Maar omdat Paul die burgemeester is, moet ons weet, Paul wil nie betaal nie, hy moet dat oorgegee word dat hy die regsproses kan face. Maar ons moet aan die einde van voor ons oorhandig, moet ons weet wie kan betaal en wie kan nie betaal nie. So, ek wil net vra dat ons die deur oophou, dat ons in principle approval kry, dat ons hierdie ding vir die volgende maand weer kan bestudeer, dat ons die verslae wat daar opgestel is, dat ons het werkelijk kan nagaan oor wat 'n voordeel net die verskerping van binne in die personeel van Kaapa Galaxy dit kan teweegbring vir die cashflow situasie van hierdie saak. So ek wil graag die tweede deel, daar's a management recommendation, but there's two parts. So we need the difference between the first one, or just to open the door for dat ons dit ondersoek, investigate of how can we improve. Thank you.
Speaker.
Burgemeester Rasselblou.
Speaker, I just we hear what the mayor is saying, and we've read the report. Just in terms of what will be the financial implication to the municipality in terms of the wage bill? Will we be employing new staff members if we're going ahead with the call center, or are we using existing staff? And I remember a few years ago, the municipality used to make use of the SMS system. Isn't that something that we can maybe bring back, where we send SMSs to people that we know that are still owing municipality? And also, is this related to only residents, or does this also include businesses that owes the municipality? Thank you, Speaker.
Speaker, ek wil net graag terugkom na die burgemeester toe en ek wil graag weet, soos raadslid Lou nou sê, die implikasies wat dit gaat wees vir die municipaliteit, gaan ons nou praat van 'n prokureur en van 'n call center, want dan gaan dit mos twee, of is dit net 'n call center en dan vir die mense hulle te maak dat hulle skuld moet betaal, en of is dit 'n invordering sessie, hoe verduidelik dit vir my asseblief?
Die idee, Speaker, is eerstens, as ons kyk, ek wil net my gaan, dat ons net as ons nou toe maak, ons wil hê dat die raad almal, omdat ons die meeste nie het, dat ons gaan kyk as raad, hoe effectief, ons praat van langtermyn sustainability, ons moet kan dienste lewer die volgende 20 jaar. Wanneer ons kom by vanaf 30 dae, wanneer jy rekening kry, tot 89 tot 90 dae. As ons gaan kyk na 'n verslag wat vir ons opgestel het, ek dink verlede jaar, was daar iets, die eerste oorhandeling was 50 miljoen rand aan die outside provider. Daarna het dit escalate, elke maand is oorhandig. So wat my versoek was van die begin af, is dat ons alles in ons vermoë, met bestaande personeel, dat ons alles in ons vermoë doen, om wat ons kom by 90 dae, die 50 miljoen kan miskien 20 miljoen gewees het. Wanneer ons net daai effort, wat Councilor sê, die nodige SMS'e, maar dat dit 'n dedicated team is. Gaan kyk in die verslag, Desember 2020 en Januarie maand 21, toe daai spesifieke service providers ingestel het, om 'n paar van ons mense, die Masikani team, net 4 of 5 mense, was spesifiek gelei en opgelei calls. En uit 2 maande was daar extra amper 3 miljoen, of 3,5 of 2 miljoen rand extra net hier hulle ingebring. So wat ek sê, ons het 'n productivity study laat doen, waar ons personeel, hoe kan ons optimaal sekere personeel gebruik, sonder op die einde van die dag te sê, kyk wat ons salarisrekening is, 40%. Sonder mense te kom by die punt en sê, luister, ons moet soveel retrains, waar jy miskien iets anders kan aangewend het, om extra geld in te kry, maar jy gaan 'n bydrae lewer. Dit is al, sonder extra personeel aanstel, net more efforts in what we're trying to do, for people who can pay. Ons moet bestaan, as mense wat nie kan betaal. Ons moet einde daarvoor ons aan die prokureur oorhandig, moet ons kan besluit, is dit die moeite werd om vir Paul Swart oorhandig of nie. That is all. That we within the next month or 2, it's not a final decision. That we sitting around, go to the blackboard and make our own sums.
Hannes, wou jy iets gesê het?
Oh, so thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we actually say the same thing. I think if you look at the report, there are 3 options for the municipality to add value, or to make sure that we can add value specific between the 30 to the 90 day. Is either we make use of the current service provider, where we only in excess of 90 days, where you actually hand over to them to assist with credit control, debt collection, to take it through the processes. And then the second one, what we have indicated, is by strengthening our own internal resources and capacity. And then the third one was actually that we said is actually to outsource additional capacity to the current capacity that we already have within the municipality. So if we're looking at what the municipality already invested since that outcome of that report in terms of the turnaround strategy, there's a lot of things that we have already implemented. Yes, one of it, we appointed a service provider for the 90 days and more to take it the full process, even to summon people, and if need be, to sell some of those vacant land to recover our property rates on that. So that was the purpose with that. Together with that external service provider, one of the requirements was also to have an external call center specific for that purpose. I understand the focus here now is between the 30 days up to the 90 days. If one look at the report that was prepared and submitted by the manager ICT services on request of the MM, there was actually now an assumption to say, yes, if we add additional capacity, what will be the cost? You know, if we provide capital investment to make it happen, what will be the operating cost additional to what we do have? Then if one also look in the report, what we did is to say, yes, we have now defined the roles, responsibilities within the unit. We already invested internally, where we moved people around, where we added additional 2 people in that section, and also those people where we're looking at productivity at the inquiries front desk, not only to entertain inquiries of the public, but also now to assisting with financial queries on the financial system, but also now being trained to further enhancement the idea of calling people and adding more value to that. So the recommendation is actually there. The one is to say, and that is what Councillor Jantjies also mentioned, is to, and that is also the suggestion, we already invested now, we're already busy with processes. We added another module now that we're currently busy to implement, where we will send more SMSs to people to monitor them. So we added that already, and we're in process to continue doing that to be more effective and efficient in terms of our collection services. But the recommendations to either that we continue and to invest and to build that capacity, or that we're looking at external or outsourced call center service that will add value to that. And I think that is a decision, is to either to say we continue and we do what we do and see what we can achieve, or the next one is then that we add additional capacity as a call center only dedicated to do that. What we just said, if you look at the reporting, all of it might not be clear, but there might also be administrative obstacles in terms of our processes. We do have processes, what we follow, how we follow those processes. And the moment if you have other interference in terms of those processes, we might confuse people as well. So it's just from my side, that is the recommendation. The one is internal, and we build the capacity further, and so on the same principle as the call center, with more dedication towards that. And the other one is where we added external outsource call center additional to the 30 days. And I think that is what that recommendation is actually all about.
Thank you.
I just want to highlight some of the points that have gone around the table. The intention is not to get an external center. The intention is to make our internal processes more effective, our current staff more productive, and do things like Councillor Lowe said, maybe step up our SMSs. And Alderman Jantjies said something in a previous council meeting which really struck my heart, to make a friendly phone call to people. And for the consumer and for the residents to get a friendly phone call, a reminder SMS before they incur any legal expenses. That is in a nutshell the idea. And there is the added bonus, which I can possibly see at the end of the tunnel, is that it can turn into a client service center where they can also answer inquiries. So I believe it will be very beneficial to the community and the municipality.
I think that what worries people is the term that you use, center. It must be department, not center. That's what bothers people on this line. But Renee?
We are not against what the mayor is saying, because definitely we want to get our money back to the municipality, but I definitely think we're spending too much money on lawyers. And that's one of the major things. So we want to, in principle, agree with the mayor. But I also think what we need to do is that we need to get also EPWP workers into the Masikane office that can assist in doing door-to-door. And I think those EPWPs can also be trained to do those phone calls, as we said, in terms of to speed up the process by getting, obviously, the revenue back to the municipality. So in principle, we do agree, and I think it's the wording of it, that when you think center, you think something separate, with new staffing, etc. So thank you very much for clarifying that also, Speaker.
Speaker, I just want to have clarity at this thing now, because the council never took such a decision or was informed. We, at the moment, make use of an external provider to collect outstanding debts. Outstanding debts. I just want to have clarity. Council, what do we read in outstanding debts? Now, Hannes has just said that the outside provider collect debts from 90 days and over. What is the agreement at this moment with the outsiding provider? All outstanding debts. If I'm 30 days over, I can get handed over to the outside without no cause from the municipality. And it's happening. So this is actually the only thing what I'm asked is that we have a dedicated team within Cape Gallis from 31 days to 89 days to call, nice friendly call, SMS, follow up and follow up and follow up. We don't have thousands of rands on debtors, millions. Go to the traffic department, millions. So just from my side, as right from years now again, plea for a dedicated team, and we already started, as Anna said, got extra, but we need to have a dedicated team concentrating on this thing. Thank you.
Yeah, the way I hear, we're all in agreement with that. I think it's the wording that the recommendation might just need to be tweaked a little bit, not an and and an or, but let's say in the municipal and give principal approval for, and now you can have something like a more focused effort to recover outstanding debt between that. Then there's no threat of a building coming up with an external. This is the fear. So if we just word it such that it's a principle, so that the portfolio can further investigate and come up with a proposal to council saying that's what we want to do. We need X, Y, Z. That I think will solve it.
You can remember in the last term that we never.
Outside calls, and that was never the intention to have an outside call center. But we have to start with a process one. It can actually end up in a professional service from out the municipality. But this thing, the first phase, to establish a dedicated team for debt improvement, collection. What we already started now with one or two. And what Councillor Lowes also said is that what the service provider that came and do the training, that there is money from outside the CETAs where we can actually also make use of more people, jobless people, who can come through a training session and come professional, phoners. But we're not, the whole intention is not, I know, Speaker, that we need to address the 40% in budget. We can't appoint more people. We need to get more money in. That is the whole idea. Thank you.
Speaker, ja, ek het nie 'n probleem dat ons hierdie stelsel wat ons nou het, laat ons dit uitbrei nie. Maar nie met 'n call center nie. Ons gaan aan en soos die voorstelle gekom het, is goeie voorstelle. En as die voorstelle goed genoeg is, hoekom kan die finance departement het byvoeg en implementeer nie. Maar ons nie nodig vir 'n call center op hierdie oomblik nie. Ek meen daaroor kan ons oor 'n jaar of wat kan ons besluit, maar ons het nou 'n call center nodig. Maar as die gevoel daar is, dit moet uitgebrei word en ek kan hoor die gevoel is daar, maar ook nie met externe personele goed nie, want die burgemeester het so vasgenoem op, weet waar staan ons salarisrekening al, so dit, ek meen daarmee het ek nie 'n probleem nie, dit sal ek steun. En u het daar 'n tipe voorstel gelees en nergens het daar call center gekom nie. So waarvoor moet het 'n call center? Ons gaan aan met die stelsel, ons versterk dit. Ek dink ons is almal op dieselfde blad. Ons wil soveel as moontlik van ons uitstaande skulde in, maar nie nog met nog ekstra uitgawe ook nie. Dankie.
Al wat ons sê is, we strengthen our efforts. And the second part of this recommendation, to give principal approval for establishment of a special dedicated team in strengthening our efforts in collecting debts. First phase. So the word call center, it's people that's going to call. So whether you're at the reception or whether in your office, it's calls. And what do call centers do? They call, they send SMS. Just the idea in the bubble. So we can change the word to whatever, but we need to have emphasis on a dedicated team. Thank you.
The reception of a call center is negative. So why is it you worded like the way it is now? Are we in agreement with the way it is?
Yeah.
Behalwe call center, ek stem alles saam wat die Meyer sê, dat ons daai moet versterk goed, maar call center moet uit. Nou, dit is reg. Excuse me. That's confused.
Call team.
Ja.
Call team.
Okay, we have the wording now. So.
Ja, kyk, die confusing is, soos die Meyer ook
moet om ander mense ook weet om te praat, asseblief, man. Ek het my hand nou al lang, hele tyd hier op al, en die val net aan die dringende punt. Hy het my die woord gegee en te praat hier weer. Dankie. Baie dankie, speaker. Ek dink dat ons moet een ding verstaan, dan gaan dit die hele proses. Die Meyer se gevoel gaan nie net oor 'n 90 dae situasie waar hy oorhandig word aan die prokureur en ekstra kostes bygevoeg word. Moet ons alle efforts inploeg om dit om daai geld in te vorder voordat ons daar kom. Ek dink dit is sy hele idee aangaande die hele storie. Die ander punt wat ek graag wil sê is dat ja, miskien is die woord call center, miskien nie die regte woord nie, maar as ons kyk nou byvoorbeeld na dedicated client service center, ek dink dit sal 'n meer effektiewe woord wees aan die einde van die dag, waar ons, soos wat al voorheen genoem was, dat ons vorder skuld in, maar ons dien ook dan, ons gee ook dan 'n client service aan die gemeenskap van Kaapagallus. Dit kan dan verder uitgebrei word op 'n later stadium, soos wat die burgemeester gesê het, met die different stages, waar ons dan nou fines kan collect. Ons mense kan bel, jy het 'n uitstaande fine, jy skuld die munisipaliteit soveel en soveel en soveel. So, dit is waarna die burgemeester eintlik beweeg. En ek dink as ons dit so verstaan, dan sal ons almal saamstem, dat dit is die korrekte manier om die ding te doen. Dankie.
Ek dink ons stem almal saam. Daar's geen verskil nou hier nie. Inteendeel, fases, hy kan uitgebrei word, ons kan ontslae raak van die kontrak van die prokureur op 'n stadium, en jy weet, so, ons stem saam. Ek dink Marius lees net gou voor ek vir Raadsheer Jantjies kan sê, lees net soos jy hom nou het, dat ons 'n voorsteller kan kry.
Die eerste gedeelte van die management recommendation, council considers, and it's going to be approved, the content of the report, of the note of the report, to either continue with the existing processes and procedures in place, and to give principal approval for the establishment of a special delegated team with specific focus to recover all outstanding debts between the 30 and 90 days period.
Kan ek by die voorstellers hoor of julle tevrede is met so, is jy in agreement? Kan ek van hierdie kant aan die tafel hoor, julle is tevrede?
We are, Speaker, maybe agreed with the proposal as it might be, hoping that we will not have a serious impact on our organogram that is existing now.
Onthou nou, ja.
Op 'n team, of wat 'n team. Dit moet in huis uit die finansies uitkom. In huis uit die finansies, as wat saam. Dat is buitekant.
Dat is nie buitekant.
Ja,
dat is alles wat.
Ja.
Ek wil net, Speaker, as jy my net met toelaat, al die raadslede, gaan, en dit ek kry numerous calls, wat huidiglik plaasvind, en dit is wat die onderburgemeester sê, ons moet van ons kant af, daar innovative thinking, onthou net as mense wat oorgegewe is, wat sê wat 200, 300 is skuld het. As jy sy eerste brief van die prokureur kry, dan sy kost is 800 rand. So ons wil dit probeer, alles in ons vermoë doen, om ons gemeenskap nie verder te verander nie. Net calls en meer SMS uit die municipaliteit uit. Georganised, bestuur en gemanaged, supervised. Thank you.
Okay, so that deals with that matter. Thank you very much, councillors. 11.15 het te doen met die korting op 'n huurooreenkoms van Southern Wales akkommodasie. Jy sal nou, daar was voorheen 'n versoek gewees van, ek dink mevrou Rowena Europa van Southern Wales akkommodasie, en as gevolg van die COVID-pandemie en ander faktore het sy 'n versoek gerig dat die in terme van die COVID-ondersteuningsbeleid dat die dink is die gelde wat sy geskuld het dan basies afgeskryf word, en dan die bestuursaanbeveling dat die aansoek om korting nie ondersteun word nie, aangesien die COVID-ondersteuningsbeleid nie voorsiening maak vir die afskryf of vermindering van huurgeld nie, maar dat wel reëlings getref kan word met die uitstaande bedrag oor 'n tydperk te kan vereffen. So is maar basies wat die bestuursaanbeveling is, juis as gevolg van konsekwentheid, sodat daar nie 'n presedent geskep word nie, het ons kan daar reëlings getref word met die finansies afdeling om die agterstallige skulde aan die munisipaliteit deur middel van 'n reëling afbetaal kan word. Speaker.
Dankie, kommentaar. Burgemeester.
Speaker. Jy weet, ek het nou net na COVID, daar's maniere hoe ons werk waar ons hand kan uitreik na klein opkomende besigheid. Ek dink Council Lou het nou vir ons ook daarvan gepraat. Dan was al die departement werkte waar, jy weet, ondersteuning. Die was nou die dag, ek dink was het National Development Agency mense, NDA, ons moet hulle weer nooi. Hulle gee sê tot, wat sit 50-60.000 rand om te help. En as ander fondse ook. En ons wil nie sien dat mense projekte waarmee hulle begin het, want hulle het begin met 'n liefde. En ek dink in hierdie geval, ek praat onder korreksie. Ek praat totaal en al onder korreksie. Dat in hierdie geval, dis nou die dame, die vrou van die oorlede raadslid. Was daar versoeke paar jaar terug, soos ek jou nog korreksie, om ons kyk om hierdie die gebou te verkoop aan hulle, of wat ek al. Ek wil vra, is die moontlikheid? En hy vraag, jy weet, jy kan hier en hier, jy bou 'n ding op, jy bou 'n klein tile op, na 2 jaar, is daar iemand anders, dat sê die kliëntel opgebou. Is dit moontlik dat daar kontrak is nog vir 2 jaar om in onderhandelings te gaan en sê, is die moontlikheid daar om hierdie plek op 'n tenderbasis te verkoop, of hoe voel sy op hierdie oomblik? Ons weet wat COVID gemaak het aan 'n klomp plekke, maar ons as raad moet ook, jy weet, ons eiendom, ons geboue beskerm. So ek wil net weet, is daar al gesprek gevoer met haar, hoe voel sy hulle in 2 jaar, want sy kan nou oormal opgee, die raad is nou koud, ons gaan nou opgee, ons gaan toemaak, ons kan nie aangaan nie. Word daar ondersteuning van gebied om regtig wat haar plek te bemaak? Ek wil net hê daai gesprekke moet plaasvind tussen LED en hierdie opkomende, nie spesifiek net van haar nie, maar ons opkomende entrepreneurs. En wat is die moontlikheid om hierdie plek op 'n stadium in die mark te sit?
Enige kommentaar verder? Raadslid August Martinez.
Burgemeester, Speaker, ek wil net weet by die burgemeester, as u nou praat van die plek in die mark sit, praat ons van om vir haar as die eerste opsie te gee om te koop. En dan, omdat het COVID was, en baie besighede het swaar gekry, wil ek toch vir hulle dus moet kyk na die versoek. Ek weet dat die vorige raad het besluit, of is ter, maar my vraag is net, as ons gaan besighede ondersteun, plaaslik, en wat ons nou swaar gekry het onder COVID, kan ons dan ons hand uitsteek om vir mevrou Europa tegemoet te kom in die situasie?
Jy sê ons reg, maar ek wil baie graag volgende 2 weke weer 'n gesprek hê met die wat is dit, NDA, National Development Agency, verteenwoordiger. Hulle wil baie graag 'n voetpad in die munisipaliteit het. En dat is ernstig, daar's 'n paar mense wat werklik goed doen met sekere projekkies. Ek kyk na soos Anti-Susie, dink ek, wat appeteer, haar catering. Ons het al mense hier gegee al in die afgelope jaar of 2 yskaste en wat ek al. Ons gee soms dit vir die verkeerde mense. En 'n maand daarna is die goed verkoop. Gee dit vir mense wat bewys het hulle wil iets doen. Iets wat al klaar daar gesit is. En laat ons daai ondersoek doen in Kapagallas, die LED, en dan nooi vir die NDA mee wat vervaardiging. Sê, julle het nog gekom, julle wil 'n voetprint in Kapagallas sê, hier is nou die geleentheid. Take it.
Wil inset gelewer het?
Meneer die Speaker, ek dink as ons gaan kyk na die item en die rede hoekom ons weer teruggekom het na die raad toe, dit was reeds vir die raad voorgehou gewees en daar is gesê gaan kyk in terme van die beleid, hoeveel besighede het gedurende die COVID-tyd waar ons vergunning gedoen het, wel na die munisipaliteit toe gekom en wat was die impak daarvan? En ek dink dit was die rede hoekom ons dit terugbring in die proses, soos jy almal weet, om aansoek te kan doen of vergunning te kon kry, was dit eintlik maar meer 'n deel van toepassing op jou deernisgevalle. Die beleid is sodanig aangepas dat gedurende hierdie tydperk van COVID of die pandemie wat ons ervaar het, dat dit ook besighede insluit met doelgerigte rede en dan vergoeding. Nou jy sal gaan sien in die item dit wat ons het in die tydperk wat ons gekry het van die inligting wat ons het 15 besighede het kom aansoek doen om gebruik te maak van die vergunning om die skulde oor 'n tydperk te betaal, soos wat die beleid wel van toepassing is. En nie een van die besighede se skulde is afgeskryf nie, en ek dink dit het gegaan oor die beginsel. En dit is hoekom ons die item teruggebring het nou na die raad toe, gebaseer met daai addisionele inligting om te sê ja, soveel besighede het welkom gebruik maak van die beleid, hoe moet ons dit gaan hanteer? En ek dink dis al wat daai addisionele gedeelte maar net sê is om te sê, ja, hulle het gekom, ons het hulle vergunning gegee, maar hulle het 'n reëling gehad oor die tydperk, dit wat bekostigbaar is binne dit om hulle te kon akkommodeer en om die rekening dan oor 'n tydperk te betaal. En ek dink almal van hulle het dit gedoen, party van hulle se reëlings is daar reeds afgehandel, maar ek dink dit was in die konteks hoekom die item terugverwys was, hoekom ons dit teruggebring het dat die raad net 'n breër begrip kan kry van hoe het ons die ander besighede gehanteer in dieselfde tydperk.
Speaker, you know what, I don't want to feel to be intimidated by the certain settlement. But it's also good to address what need to happen. But the window dressing of the different businesses is a problem. When we need even to empower even the black, those that disadvantaged, we need even by all means and look what could be done. Mentorship, and the business that is there in that vicinity will not be even the same other business sectors, or maybe the business that are around there. So I'm raising that concern. So you created your own problem, you must go and die with your own problem. So that's a problem, it's a fact. And the issue I initially addressed, this stigma of apartheid will have a serious impact on those that are empowered. Because there's means and ways. We can even invite even the service provider to assist and help. What is it the LED maybe a role they should play in that regard? So I'm not saying I didn't do anything, but we must by all means and study, even have maybe the fair share, discuss the issue pertaining to different businesses, what the mayor was saying. All because now we're just creating for them to be failed as a failures. So even say that we are going maybe to sell the building. At the end of the day, the people around there say you fail, and also we also fail, even to empower. So I'm raising that concern. It's a concern, all of us, when we're sitting here, because we don't be affected the issue that was represented in front of us, but we don't know what was happening behind the closed doors. So whatever means that we have been trying to embark, it must be the same applied to everyone.
Speaker, ek wil net ons moet inmoedig vasval nie. As ons kyk nou die nuwe bestel na 94, ons staan per 30 jaar daar. En ons is, as ons leierskap wil toon, en ek altyd sê, ek glo as persoon, ek kan nie terugkyk aan gister nie. Ek het vandag en moontlik môre. As ek my hand in die ploeg geslaan het, ek kan nie terugkyk nie. Ons moet bold genoeg wees as leiers op sekere besluite te neem. Ons is in beheer as leierskap hier so, almal saam. Praat nie van die praat wat in beheer is, maar ons is saam. As ons sekere sake op meriete, op ons, en praat het heeltyd, ek praat nie vandag, ek praat het heeltyd, op meriete. As daar saak op hierdie tafel kom, kan ons enige saak hanteer, op meriete. As ons nou 'n aansoek kry van 'n besigheid, verkorting, hanteer op meriete. As ons 'n ander saak op 'n ander, dan bekeer ons op meriete. So ek wil nie hê ons moet terugkyk op wat agter ons is nie. Ons het nou die hef van ons aan. Ons kan nou die besluit maak. Ons moet nie bang wees om besluite te maak nie. Want as ons 'n verkeerde besluit maak, moet ons dan leer uit ons verkeerde besluit uit. Maar ons moet nie bang wees om 'n verkeerde besluit te maak as ons voel ons het 'n verkeerde besluit gemaak nie. Want ons gaan nooit vorentoe of volwasse word as ons nie leer uit ons fout uit nie. En ek wil vra dat hierdie geval, soos ek sê, die dame het nog 2 jaar voor 'n kontrak. En daar's 'n geleentheid in toerisme. Ons weet ons is 2 jaar op vasgeval in toerisme. Toerisme besig die rykste besighede het so aangekry wat toegemaak het. Wat of hulle? Wil ek vra om hulle tegemoet te kom en sê, okay, kom ons hanteer hierdie saak op meriete en ons sê, dit is maar nou my persoonlike gevoel. En sê, okay, dit is nou maklik om, jy weet, dat is mos nou aanbevelings, so maklik te wees om raad om agter aanbeveling aan te. Kom ons dink out of the box. I said right at the beginning, we're going to be innovative and we're going to think innovative. Kom ons sê, in die volgende 2 jaar, dat die persoon geondersteun word deur LED oor bemagtiging, dat NID, NDA ingebring word om te help, maar dat ons sê, vir jaar 4 en jaar 5, dat ons die hier hou op die huidige hier. 2800. Maar nie dat sy skuif na amper 5000 strate nie. Maar moet ondersteuning tot die einde van haar projek. Net daai ondersteuning. Ons weet toerisme is dood. Ons gaan nog 6 maande vat om daai te kom. So that is the boldness that I think we need as leadership. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Speaker. And the Mayor actually jumped me on this one. I would really have advised that we task the local economic development department in the first instance to go and do an assessment. Because if you look at this is actually, it started off as an LED project a couple of years ago. Now, it's also incumbent on our LED department to go and determine, listen here, we've helped an entrepreneur now, we've provided that, the infrastructure, we've provided the facilities. Obviously, the COVID-19 must have had an impact because it was a global pandemic. So this entrepreneur also would have suffered the effect of COVID-19 and specifically the tourism industry. And that they come up with, in terms of the assessment, this is the recommendation that they are coming forward. Exactly what the Mayor said, bring NDA in or any other entity for that matter that can assist. And also the mentorship that Councillor Mokotwana talked about, because that's important. Because I speak under the correction, but that might be the only black female-owned business in the what do you call it, hospitality industry in that area. So there's a responsibility on us in order to provide that support, provide that mentorship, and then come up with a proposal what can be afforded. As het ons ook nou net lig raak, uit die lig uit gaan vat en sê maar laat ons besluit dit ons doen dit aan die hand van 'n ingeligte verslag wat ons op ons tafel kom. So maybe chairperson of the finance and IT committee that we have that engagement with our economic development department and see what at this point in time the recommendation is just done in terms of the policy. Council does a certain policy and the application does not conform with that part of the policy. We're also having a workshop in terms of property management, and I've always been saying that property management workshop must be able to provide us with categories. En want ek stem saam met die burgemeester, ons kan nie almal onder dieselfde kam skeer nie. We need to categorize where we want to have empowerment and how are we going to make sure that our policy supports our empowerment responsibility. Hierdie kan nie baie duidelik sien as 'n uitkraai van 'n entrepreneur wat ons probeer help het wat sukkel. En al wat sy vra is, luister hierso, vat my net aan die hand. Ek wil nie graag hier's potensiaal in hierdie besigheid. Ek wil graag 'n footprint laat, maar sy kan dit nie op haar eie doen nie. En dis hoekom ek voel there's a responsibility on us as the from our economic development responsibility to assist her in this point in time. But our policy at this point in time doesn't make provision for korting. Dis al wat ons sê op hierdie stadium. So gee vir ons 'n geleentheid, burgemeester, om verder te gaan met hierdie aangeleentheid en kyk wat ons in plek kan sit om haar reg aan die hand te vat. Ek wil tog uit veral van 'n accounting officer perspektief, daar was 'n versoek gewees van raadlid om dit van die hand te sit en dan aan die persoon beskikbaar te stel, and they were nods from the other side. Ons gaan dit doen, ons kan dit nie doen nie. The municipal asset transfer regulations is quite clear how to dispose of municipal property. So ons kan nie sommer net sê ons gaan nou die ding in die mark sit en ons gaan vir haar die eerste koper maak. Ongelukkig, ons kan nie 'n besluit maak wat teen wetgewing is nie, want dan tree ons ultra vires op en dan moet ek die raad adviseer dat die raad maak 'n unlawful decision.
Ja, speaker, ek dink dit is goed gedebatteer en toe ek die item ook weer sien in die agenda, toe besef ek dat u weet, ons praat, ons het al genoem hier in die raadsvergaderings, dat ons praat van LED, soos ons praat van die hierop, maar ons doen niks. Ons sit hier, ons geld wat ons mond is hier. En ek wil my skuld val. Dis dieselfde wanneer 'n entrepreneur kom. En jy weet, entrepreneurs het nooit bestaan nie. Hulle is maar nou vir die laaste klompie jare wat hulle geleentheid kry. En dit is dieselfde met hierdie grondstorie. Jy weet, ons wil entrepreneurs help, maar ons wil ons kat ook maak. En daar val ek in my skuld, want ek was deel van hierdie besluit gewees. Maar ek het op ons oë geraak. Jy weet, ek wil vir jy sê, miskien kan ons het gebruik vir projekte in die toekoms. As ons vir 'n entrepreneur wat vandag moet begin, en dit is waar die probleem lê. Dit help jy begin, jy help hom vandag tot môre nie. Want geen besigheid kan in 'n dag of 2 of 'n jaar of 2 bestaan nie. Hierdie besluit wat ons geneem het toe sy begin het met die huur van R900 per maand, dit was 100% reg, dink ek. Al wat ons gemis het, is ons moet dit daai R900 moet ons gehou vir 5 jaar, dan het ons aangehelp. Dan het ons aangehelp. Maar nou het ons ervaring van die wel af tot in die sloot gehelp. Ons het die vir die kaas gegee, dat sy haar voete kan vind, en na 5 jaar moet jy nou mee betaal. Dit moet ons doen. Ek noem het vir die toekoms, en dit is hoekom sy nie kan survive nie. Want sy, die eerste jare, kan sy dit gemaakt het, maar die tweede jaar en derde jaar, met dit sy sommer begin, so ek noem het maar net vir jy.
Jantjies, ek en jy was saam met die besluit in 2013, toe ons dit vir haar gegee het teen R137 'n maand. So dis so lank soos dit al aankom. En as sy in so lang tydperk nie op haar bene kan staan nie, dan het ek 'n groot probleem dat ons, al wat ons gaan doen is, ons gaan vir haar net 'n groot klomp skuld wat ophoop, as ons nie die huur verander nie. Ek stem met julle saam, heeltemal.
Ja. Chairperson, kan ons gewoon net voordat die burgemeester wil rook net hierdie item afhandel, want ek moet ook nou gou by. So. Okay.
Thank you, MM. I just wanted to say it's not often that I agree with everybody, but I hear what the councillors all say. I even have to agree with Alderman Yankees, who said that he's getting older. And definitely agree with that. He said he's getting, but I wanted to assure you as LED is under my portfolio, that we will do an assessment as soon as possible, and we will facilitate and open negotiations with the NDA or Westgrow or what other opportunities there are for her.
Thank you, Councillor. Marius, is dit vir ons so notuleer? Wil jy nog een afhandel of wil jy?
Ja, ek spreek nou net wat is die besluit? Ek stuur net maar aan die vraag met eers en begin ons
die NMC ons aanvaring bestuur sy aanbeveling soos dit is, maar met die verskil dat ons dan 'n assessment gaan maak om te kyk hoe ons dit gaan raak en weer voortgesit. Die bedrag, die afspraak skuld.
Dit is aan die belang van einde van die land seker maak dat ons die raad se besluit.
Ja, baie dankie spreker. Kan ek gewoon net verskoon word asseblief, CFO?
Ek kan ons wel 5 minute.
Okay, dank.
Can we then move to item 11.16, the writing of recovered legal costs, Mrs. Ventura and Mrs. Mundamla. The purpose of the report is to request council to consider the writing of legal costs recovered in respect of successful interdict demolition orders against these two people. And the management recommendation for that is that council consider to write off the outstanding legal costs to the amount of 8,000 rand payable by Mrs. Esmond Tour in respect of warrant of execution that was issued by court due to changed circumstances and deteriorated financial position. And then the second consideration to be given the writing off of a legal cost to the amount of 8,000 rand 684.66 payable by Mr. Bandla in respect of warrant of execution that was issued by the court due to the fact that the full amount will be irrecoverable. And then the recommendation from the Finance and IT Services Committee that the recommendation be accepted.
Enige insette, kommentaar, comments? Can I get a proposer? Daar's twee, burgemeester en onderburgemeester, baie dankie.
Thank you. Can then we move to item 11.17, die registrasie van servituut en napier en die versoek vir die moontlike kompensasie van kostes aangegaan deur meneer Roderick Roberts. U sal onthou dit was ook 'n item wat aan die raad voorgehou was en ek weet die raad is in proses om baie van die servitute oor te dra in die naam van die munisipaliteit en gedurende die tydperk het dit opgekom vir die versoek om dalk meneer Roberts te kompenseer vir die ingang, die oproep wat daar was op sekere goed. Ons het probeer verdere inligting bekom vanaf die stadsbeplanning afdeling en ja, daar's geen ander toegang gewees nie en daar's geen verdere inligting ter bevestiging van die gesprek met die vorige stadsbeplanningsbestuurder in die verband nie en dit is maar net 'n versoek wat aan die raad voorgehou was en die aanbeveling dat die raad die versoek deur meneer Roderick Roberts oorweeg vir moontlike goedkeuring ten bedrag van die R5,000 syne kompensasie vir die oprigting van oprit gebaseer op die oorspronklike ooreenkoms met die vorige eienaar en dat die krediet aangewend word in die belastingrekening. So, dit was 'n versoek wat direk ontvang was van die prokureurs terwyl hulle besig was met die proses en dit is vir die raad vir oorweging.
Kommentaar?
Sorry, Speaker, kan ek net saam spreek saam met een
Ja.
Ja.
Ja, sterkte daar. Daarbij baie dankie. Ek sal dit verantwoordelik hanteer, glo my. Kommentaar van die wijkraadslid? Stem? Ek kyk het 'n voorstel en raadslid Olwag gesekondeer.
Thank you. Then we can move to item 11.18, interim arrangement for Cape Agulhas municipality relating to the Preferential Procurement Act following the Constitutional Court judgment declaring the PPPFA regulations invalid. There was a court judgment recently in terms of excluding certain categories of people, whether local, whether in terms of certain products, from the procurement processes, and then the Constitutional Court declared unconstitutional. I can just mention from the municipality side, I think we're not really at risk the way our policy and the way we apply it currently, but it's just for council for notification as per the management recommendation that council maintain the status quo and that is to continue applying the 2070 preferential procurement regulations input up till such time as the Constitutional Court has declared the date on which the regulations will be invalid. So we're still awaiting from National Treasury, Provincial Treasury to give more directive, but I think there's no legislative thing that how can I say enforce the municipality not to continue with that. But I think in general the municipality is not really at risk the way we apply the policy. Just for council's recommendation and or approval.
Is that a unanimous one? Baie dankie.
Then the next one is item 11.19, Cape Governors Municipality Airpath Way Study is to inform Council of the Cape Governors Municipality Airpath Way Study and its recommendations. I think it's in the report, and it's actually just for Council to take note of the study and the recommendations to relax the buffer zone for 500 meters to 200 meters, and Council to approve the process for the application DP to relax the buffer zone for the Bredasdorp landfill site. It's just for Council then to recommend.
Thank you, CFO.
Chairperson, if I maybe can also add something as part of Council to consider to maybe extend the recommendation in the light of the current happenings in terms of the air pathway study that was concluded specifically for Zwelicha, and the recommendation that there needs to go or intervention from our side with the legal compliance of the waste management site will have a direct impact on the upgrade of that area. We do have the opportunity now, and I want to recommend actually that our technical team, technical services, who is responsible for the mediation and you know, regarding the issue, you know, please, you know, emphasize this as a urgent matter, because we need a resolution in terms of DP and also their conditions that they would put to enable us as human settlements to actually give us that momentum to start with that upgrade. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis. I recognize you, sir.
Thank you, Speaker. We take note of the because that doesn't include the whole of Swedish. It only includes the section between 200 and 500 meters from the buffer zone. So we will do it within our power following today's council session to request.
It sounds again like a unanimous decision. Thank you.
Just note, Speaker, that I think if you could look in Zwelicha, especially Polo Park, they've passed that buffer zone already. So I think it's just a formality
They will not relax it further in the future. And maybe we should put a hard buffer at the 200 meter zone. Yes,
Nee, moeilik as jy gemaklik met alles wat so vinnig gesê is nou? Maar jy sal die bande lees as dit nodig is. Baie dankie.
Thank you, Speaker. We item 11.20. Inclusion of the proclaimed municipal road MMR 264 and MMR 261 as part of the periodic maintenance contracts C120 and C120. Maybe I can just ask the Director Technical Services just to provide further feedback to the item, maybe before we will come to the management recommendation. Abdul?
Yes.
they provide 80% of the maintenance budget, and we have to commit, the council has to commit 20%, and it's quite clear. It's the All Saints Road, that is the road that is in question, and then also the other road is Marine Drive in Struisbaai. So those are two proclaimed roads, and I think the item is fairly clear, and I think we've included it also in the budget, in the draft budget, and it should just stay in the budget. It should never be removed if it's a council decision that province goes ahead and spend all that money on maintenance. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Jacob.
Mr. Speaker, then wanneer is er van plan om te beginnen met hierdie
Speaker, through you, the item is really clear. It says the one is for next year, and the one is in 3 years from now, 24, 25. The item in front of you, I don't have the item open. The item is on page 118 to 129, but the dates are very clear. Een is volgende jaar en een is in 3 jaar van nou.
Tweede raadsheer Jantjies.
I will second, but
thank you. I think it's a unanimous one. I think the listeners are quite happy to hear that those two roads are going to be maintained at the minimum cost to council.
So the 1121 we just withdraw, and then we move to item 1122, excessive overtime management during the peak season. To inform council of the impact of overtime hours intervention by infrastructure services staff during the peak season. We implemented certain measures and effectiveness in terms of how we're going to manage the overtime, and it's actually just for council's notification, the management recommendation, council to note the impact of the overtime hours intervention by infrastructure services during the peak festive season, resulting in improved compliance to the basic condition of employment, normally, especially where they exceeded the 40-hour overtime bracket. So we tried to manage it within that. So it's just for notification to council.
Councillors, take note. Thank you. Unanimous. Thanks.
Then, Mr. Speaker, then we can move to 1123, Struisbaai stormwater redress and project update. It's actually to inform council of the stormwater situation progress based in Struisbaai, and more specifically to Struisbaai North, following the recent flooding and high rainfall in 2021. Mr. Speaker, I think with your permission, if I can just ask Mr. Abdulaziz Jacobs maybe just to give more feedback to this item.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Speaker. CFO. Since the May of 2020-21, where there was excessive rainfall, and we need to note that it was indeed considered as excessive rainfall, there wasn't only damage to Struisbaai North, there was also extensive damage, flooding damage to private households and also municipal buildings as well. So they were on the verge of declaring it the state of disaster, meaning to say that the municipality doesn't have the financial capability to deal with the disaster, and it was withdrawn. It was not withdrawn its entirety, but all the municipal issues were not regarded as part of that state of disaster. Then provincial government has given us a grant of 1.3 million rand. It was for two aspects. The two aspects was, one is to procure a very, very big pump, a 200 millimeter pump, as opposed to a 50 or 65 millimeter pump that we're currently using. And that pump is in the process of procurement. It has gone through the bid evaluation committee already, bid adjudication committee. So I think the pump was in the range of 750,000 rand. It will be a portable pump, not only for the use of Struisbaai North, but should any of the other roads like Nachtwacht or any other roads be flooded in the municipality, that we'd be able to use that very big pump, and it will be our own pump. It is fully funded by provincial government. And the other one was for the other monies were for planning, to get a solution to Strays by North's very low-lying areas. We had a technical solution. The technical solution was rebutted by Langezand. Langezand said it is not ecologically friendly, that we cannot proceed with that, and that we will then re-engage. So we will do another redesign of that one to permanently los daai probleem op. And that's where we are, Speaker. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I think the recommendation is for Council to note, and the Infrastructure Services Committee also recommend the recommendation from management to be accepted.
Thank you, councillors. Can we accept it? Is it fine by you? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, then we move to item 1124, request for discount on basic service sewer levy, Bredasdorp Park, Nampo. Actually, the purpose of the report is for Council to consider, based on a request, a discount rate on the basic rate for sewer. And I think there was also a complaint about insufficient water pressure, and in the same breath, they also request a 40% discount on the basic sewer. I think there was a comment and recommendation from the Infrastructure Directorate not to approve the reduction in the sewer levy, as it can set a precedent for other business and property owners to have levies reduced due to limited use or holiday homes only being occupied for part of the year. So the recommendation from the Infrastructure Services Committee then is that management recommendation be accepted and referred to Council for consideration.
Comments, please. Councillor Donald, thank you.
Keeping in mind what the Mayor said earlier about judging each item on its own merits, I don't think that the risk of causing a precedent might not be that great. And we must also keep in mind that they're not using these facilities outside of the exhibition time, and they contribute a lot to the economy when they have the NAMPO and when they have the exhibitions. And they also provide their services and facility to us to use. So I am in favor of giving them a reduction.
Thank you, Councillor. Just to add the contribution they bring, they value it something like between 5 and 6 million a year that the people visiting NAMPO leave behind in our town. 5 to 6 million in guest houses and restaurants and fuel pumps and wherever. And secondly, on the 23rd, we're using the APSA building for our ward committee induction. And we used it in the past on a regular basis without any cost to council. So I think we must carefully consider whether we do not want to allow them this discount. But it's not my decision, I'll leave it to you guys. Councillor Jantjies.
Ja, Speaker. Ek weet presies wat groot NAMPO beteken vir hierdie gemeenskap. Daar is geen probleme daar met die. Maar dan het ek 'n groot probleem met die vorige item wat ons gehad het. Ek meen waar ons nie 'n opkomende entrepreneur steun nie. En as hierdie item, ek kan nie my steun daarvoor gee, as ons onmiddellik daai versoek wat voor ons gewys het, nie steun nie. Dit is absoluut onaanvaarbaar. Ek kan dit nie steun nie. Ek ondersteun NAMPO en ek weet wat 'n groot bydrae, maar regtaar, ons kan nie die mense wat niks het, ek meen hulle laat betaal en die mense wat het, laat ons nie betaal nie. Dit is absoluut en ek kan dit nooit steun nie. Ek sal nooit kan slaap daardeur nie. Dit is nie laat ek hierdie ding steun nie, maar dan moet ons konsekwent wees. Ons is absoluut nie konsekwent daaroor nie. As ons teruggaan en hy vind dat ons bespreek het, gaan verander, gaan ek dit steun. Maar of anders kan ek dit nooit steun nie. Ek sal nooit kan saamleef met my gewete nie. En mense, dit moet nie gaan oor hierdie 2 punte nie. Dit moet nie gaan nie, ons sal vir almal moet onder dieselfde kam skeer. Ons kan nie dit so doen nie. Wat ons vir die een doen, moet ons vir die ander doen. Of anders is ons baie swak leiers. Baie dankie.
Raadslid Jantjies, jy weet ek respekteer jou opinie altyd. So ek verskil nie met wat jy nou gesê het nie, maar as ek reg onthou, het ons juis gesê daar gaan teruggegaan word na Southern Wales en saam met Councillor Donald, help my as ek nou verkeerd is, gaan hulle kyk na haar state en hulle gaan kyk of hulle die huur kan hou op die oorspronklike ene en dit so hanteer en afskryf. Dis soos ek het het.
Onthou, dit gaan nie vir my oor Southern Wales nie. Dit gaan nie vir my oor Nampo nie. Dit gaan vir my oor Kaapagallus. So wat ek vir u sê, as daar meer sulke versoeke kom, moet ons dit dieselfde behandel en ons gaan naderhand geen inkomste meer kry nie. Dit is wat dit is. Ons is hier om te kyk na die belange van Kaapagallus. Dit is die goeie ding. Of anders gaan ons nergens meer inkomste, elkeen gaan kom met 'n versoek en hulle weet, hier so Vader Kersfees is hier elke dag, nie 25 Desember nie. Dankie.
Nee, ek verskil daarmee. Ek dink daarmee ons gaan Vader Kersfees speel. Dit gaan op Meriete wees en dit moet so wees. Dit moet op Meriete wees. Ons kan nie sommer net links en regs uitdeel nie. Dis wat ek sê nie. Ek probeer net sê as ons die res van hierdie jaar daai fasiliteite by hulle gaan huur, gaan dit ons meer kos as dit wat nou op hierdie rekening staan, maar dis nie my call nie. Julle gaan besluit. As ons moet stem, sal ons, maar op hierdie stadium Meneer Jacobs, jy wil iets sê?
Just an additional part of clarity, Speaker, thank you for putting me another opportunity. We need to understand what is the payment policy, the national view on payment. Normally there is I'm sorry to go back to basics to the councillors, but normally there is a view of the user must pay principle. But now in South Africa, we don't adopt the user must pay principle. Because that means to say that indigenous people should also be paying. However, South Africa as a national government, they adopt the process of the ability to pay. So it has been established that NAMPO does have the ability to pay. They are not pleading to us. They are not pleading to us to say that they have come to see us, Speaker, with all due respect. They said that the first issue was the water pressure. They wouldn't be able to hold NAMPO this year if the water pressure is not resolved. Immediately, within 24 hours, we resolved the water pressure. In 24 hours. We disconnected another line that was on that line, and the water pressure was resolved. I gave them a call. They said it's fine. When I spoke to them also, they said, this was an additional point that they would ask for vergunning. And I think just to put that into perspective, Speaker, that is our view as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobs. All right, then we have to get a proposer and seconder for management recommendation. Easy as that.
I think in light of the new evidence and information that the Director of Infrastructure has given us, I can propose we accept the management recommendation.
Ek het ons gesê dit moet net so genutileer word dat ek sal dit ondersteun as Southern Wales se goed ook soos versoek is na gekyk word. En nie net na gekyk word nie, die tariewe goed afgebring word en enige versoek in Kaapagallus wat kom, moet ons onder dieselfde kam skeer. Dit is my voorstel. Dan sal ek daai voorstel ondersteun.
Die punt is nou verby, so maar neem kennis. Ja. Ek gaan kliphard probeer om so regverdig.
Al wat ek sê mense, ons gaan groot probleme kry. Ons gaan groot probleme in die gemeenskap uit kry as ons sekere mense se goed afskrywe of vergunning maak en nie ander besighede of wat ook al nie. Ek kan nie saamstem met dit. En as hulle dit nie nutileer nie, sal ek 'n punt maak dat dit daarop kom.
Raadslid Jantjies, raadsheer Jantjies, die punt van Southern Wales is genotuleer. Hierdie een het ons nou ook afgehandel. Al wat ons as 11 raadslede vir mekaar moet sê is dat elke punt wat hier kom, debatteer ons soos groot mense en ons neem 'n besluit namens die gemeenskap en ek sal my rol so regverdig as moontlik probeer speel, dat hier nie iemand voorgetrek word of onregverdig hanteer word nie. Dit is ons rol as raadslede, so ek hou daarby. Dankie, kom ons gaan aan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Then we can move to item 1125, maintenance of communal toilets in the informal settlements. It's just a report to report on the situation regarding the water and sanitation services. It was also an issue that was raised by the community from the Swelicha during the protest we had. And I think, yes, just some feedback, background. Yes, that the toilets been maintained by EPWP appointed staff in all the informal settlements. And the unfortunate part that is also reality is that the toilets are regularly vandalized, leading to unavailability of provision of basic services. And that the Water and Sanitation Department has conducted a survey to establish a number of unserviced and communal toilets. It was repaired, and I think there's also 5 additional toilets that will be installed in Suelisha on the road leading to Bredard's Road landfill site. Then the recommendation from the Infrastructure Services Committee is that the Infrastructure Committee note the situation regarding the water and sanitation services in the informal settlement income, and that an action plan be compiled to address the current issues raised with regard to that. And then that the ward councillors engage with the community to cease acts of vandalism of infrastructure, and that the Department of Human Settlements together with infrastructure have discussion with the residents to finalize the planning processes. So you will see we do have issues with vandalism, and I think there's also an item that also deal with that. This is for council then to consider.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to the infrastructure team, especially the department for the work that they are doing there. I've had a walk around. This was also prior to the uprising, and we saw some of the toilets has been restored, and also they're busy with the installation of the 5 toilets, especially on the road, or as we call it, the Kalkoene road. So we want to say thank you in that regard. Just a key point that I would like to raise is that some of the toilets are locked. And that is one of the key concerns that is a challenge within the ward, because some residents have access to the toilets and some residents also don't have access. And I think this was also one of the challenges which escalated the tension between some of the nationals and the non-nationals regarding who's got the keys. So I think it's just that one issue that we still need to deal with. And I do take note of the recommendations from department, and we are engaging with some of the communities in terms of vandalizing and making sure that we look after the property in that regard. So I just want to say thank you very much to the department for their response in that regard. Thank you very much.
Councillor Lowe, can we then accept the recommendation unanimously? Thank you.
Then, Mr. Speaker, item 1126, Integrated Waste Management Bylaw 2021. And the purpose of the report is to table the Integrated Waste Management Bylaw 2021 to Council before publishing in the Government Gazette. And as we know, the Western Cape Provincial Department of Environmental Affairs and Development Planning, they developed a provincial model of Integrated Waste Management Bylaw to standardize municipal solid waste management, and that bylaw is also aligned to the national waste management. It has been finalized, our internal one, by the solid waste division, and the goal is actually to safeguard the municipality's management waste with regard to collection, disposal, and sustainable practices of waste avoidance and environmental sustainability. And then it was published. There were no comments received from the public, and also no comments from DEAT were received. So then the recommendation to that is that Council accepts the Integrated Waste Management Bylaw, Revision 1, to repeal the existing refuse removal bylaw of 2005, and that the final Integrated Waste Management Bylaw 21 be published in the Government Gazette.
Thank you, CFO. Director Jacobs, would you like to add anything?
No, Speaker, everything is procedurally correct and fair and is complete. We're just waiting for Council to say that it's good. And then Tracy will start with the process of publishing it in the Government Gazette. Thank you.
I thank you, sir. Is it a unanimous yes? Sounds like it. Thank you.
Dan item 1127 is ook dan terugverwys. En dan item 1128 verval van bouplanne, hier Jantjies Elim. Die doel van die verslag is om oorweging te skenk aan die versoek vir vrystelling vir die betaling van bouplanfooie met herindiening van bouplanne nadat dit na 12 maande verval het soos die wetgewing bepaal en die daar nog nie met enige werk begin is of uitstel om aansoek gedoen is nie. Dit was 'n item wat wel by die raad gedien het en waar daar versoek was om dan kwytstelling te versoek in terme van die betrokke wetgewing. En dan die bestuursaanbeveling wat deurgegee is dat die kwytstelling van die bouplanne wat vervra het nie aanbeveel word nie en dat die portefeulje komitee die aangeleentheid verder bespreek met moontlike alternatiewe sodat en dan het die infrastruktuurkomitee aanbeveel dat die aanbeveling aanvaar word om dit nie goed te keer nie. En ek dink dit is grotendeels vanweë die feit dat hierdie aangeleentheid gereguleer word en dat ons nie eintlik by magte is om basies buite daai wetgewing te funksioneer nie.
Vraagsteller, enige kommentaar?
Speaker, with your permission, there is a slight error in the bestuursaanbeveling. The item was referred to the portfolio committee. The portfolio committee has debated this item at length. So the bestuursaanbeveling is nie dat die portfolio committee die aangeleend. That was the previous council resolution. And then it was discussed at the portfolio committee, and the portfolio committee unanimously agreed with the management recommendation after lengthy debate that kwytskelding nie toegestaan word nie due to the legality of the matter.
Thank you, Councillor. Director. Any other comments? Is it unanimous? Almal skud kop. Kom.
Speaker, dieselfde wat ek vir ons sê, as ons kyk na wat dit kom by Meritus. Hierdie geval was mos al, ek weet nie wanneer terug was by die raad nie. Ek weet die kansler van wijk 6, daai het ook gevra, wat gaan gebeur as daar 'n ding is in Aniston of in wat 'n Pier dieselfde geval kry. Ons moet hierdie ding was verwys en teruggewys en dan so vir my is dit en wat ek gesê het daai tyd. Ons wil mense hê dat hulle verantwoordelikheid neem om huise vir hulself te bou, want die staat kan nie altyd huise voorsien nie. Hierdie persoon het 200.000 betaal vir 'n bouplan. Klaar betaal. Dit was in die begroting, as ons sê die begroting is klaar betaal. Nou vir een of ander rede die bouplan verval. En nou sê ons die beleid sê die persoon moet nou van vooraf, hy moet nou weer 200.000 betaal. Vir my is dit net as ons hierdie goedes in 'n menslike ding kan kyk. Hoeveel stukkies sement kan dit die 200.000 koop? Die persoon het klaar betaal vir. Daar's geen veranderings aangebring aan die bouplan nie. As ek sê wat ek gesê het, as die bouplan 3-4 kamers ekstra aan die nuwe bouplan, nou is daar 'n saak. Dis die same plans en die persoon het vir een of ander rede van nou later dat die bouplan verander het. Môre situasie, wie dieselfde. As ons iemand kry, wat vir my is dit 'n sekere saak wat ons op 'n meriete basis kan kyk. Ons wil hê mense moet verantwoordelikheid hê en hulle moet hulle huise bou. En dit is 100% van die mense in hierdie spesifieke dorpie bou almal hulle huise self. Daar's geen hulp van enige staatsinstansie daar om 'n huis te bou nie. Almal bou hulle huise self. Of dit nou 20 jaar vat om te bou, maar nou net iemand kan nou 'n plan opstel en dan hy kan vir daai plan, die wet sê jy moet dan ten minste iets doen vir die eerste 3 jaar op jou. Dan graaf hy net en hy gooi sy konkrete, daar staan die vir 3 jaar. Stel hoeveel kerke in Bedaarstop wat half gebou is of net fondasie gebou is. Dit kom op selfde neer dat kan die plan mos maar verval. My pleidooi is en sê dis 'n plan wat ons nou kan goed. En ek sê weer, al hoef het nie 100% dat my versoek is dat ons ten minste sê, okay, as ons vir jou wil laat betaal dan 50%. Maar moenie iemand terughou wat vir hom 'n plek wil bou waaruit hy en sy gesin kan funksioneer nie. So my voorstel is vandag is, as al moet ek wil maar as in 50% afslag en ons hanteer sulke gevalle op 'n ad hoc basis met die inligting wat voor ons is. Ons is die raad.
Enige kommentare? Director Jacobs.
This matter was referred to the Portfolio Committee. The Portfolio Committee dealt with it according to the instruction of the Council. The Portfolio Committee unanimously agreed to uphold the decision and it's brought back to the Council for consideration.
Okay, maar wat ek verstaan, die Portfolio Committee die besluitnemings mag nie. Die Portfolio Committee bring dit na die raad toe om hulle aanbevelings oor na te dink. Hierdie raad het besluitnemings mag. As ons nie kan besluit nie, vir wie verwys, is daar iemand bo ons wat die raad die besluit moet neem? Nee, ons moet die besluit neem.
Meneer die speaker, ja, as ek dalk ook net kan noem, hierdie is nie interne beleid nie, hierdie is 'n regulasie. En as 'n regulasie dit bepaal en 'n wetgewing dit bepaal en die munisipaliteit voldoen nie daaraan of kom dit nie na nie, dan kan die munisipaliteit of die raad verantwoordelik gehou word vir hierdie besluit vir die nie nakoming van die goedie. Wat sou daar dan 'n verlies wees aan inkomste? Kan dit wees as vrugtelose uitgawe of inkomste dan wat verbeur word, beskou word en dan kan dit verhaal word van die raadslede wat dan die besluite neem. So hierdie is nie 'n interne beleid waaroor die raad kan besluit. Dit is 'n regulasie wat sterker is as interne beleid, wat afdwingbaar is en dan terselfdertyd soos wat jou wetgewing, en ek dink dit is heel waarskynlik gebaseer op hierdie beginsel waarop hierdie inligting verband gehou het en waar besluit was om dit dalk te volhou. So ek gee maar net die inligting. Sou dit 'n interne beleid wees, stem ek saam met die burgemeester, dan het die raad die bevoegdheid om te sê ons wyk af van die beleid en ons keer X, Y, Z of wat ook al kan ons goedkeur, maar indien dit 'n regulasie is en wetgewing is, dan is dit ongelukkig afdwingbaar en kan ons nie buite daai regulasies of wetgewing werk nie.
Speaker, I want to raise my white flag. Maar wat ek sê, we're not losing any money. We already received the money. The guy paid 20,000 rand for the plans at Cape Agulhas municipality. We're not losing the money.
Raadslid Jantjies.
Speaker, ek wil amper dieselfde gesê het as wat die CFO gesê het. As dit 'n beleid gewees het, kan ons die beleid verander. Maar dit kan ons nou nie verander ongelukkig. Dit is die goeie ding. So ek kan nie anders as om te volstaan met die bestuursaanbeveling nie. So graag ons wil help. Of om te help nog, as ek wil 'n voorstel maak is, dan moet ek kom maar die 20.000 rand betaal voor. As dit afgehandel. Dis die probleem wat ons mee sit. Dit is nie 'n beleid nie. So dit is die.
Goed, nou het ons dit gehoor. Raadslid Nieuwoud.
As ons nou volstaan dat die persoon die bedrag geld weer moet betaal, gaan hy betaal teen die 2018 tarief of teen 'n nuwe tarief? Want ek dink dit gaan 'n bietjie onredelik wees.
As ek net die antwoord kan, ek seker die CFO sal dit beantwoord te speaker, maar as ons enige mense enigiets betaal, dan betaal hulle volgens die huidige begroting, enige huidige begroting. Die plan was nie 1 jaar verval nie, die plan was meer as 1 jaar, dit was oor die 2 jaar verval gewees. So die bebouing was onwettig gewees en dit was so ingelig by die incumbent, maar dit sal wees, as die plan weer ingedien word, dan sal die tarief van toepassing wees van die goedgekeurde raadsbegroting.
Speaker, ek wil nie dat ek nie, vir my is dit, Ek het 'n verantwoordelikheid. Ek sê net altyd, as van my verwag word om 'n besluit te neem, dan moet ek dit debatteer. Ek wil, of het nou gewilde of gewilde of ongewilde besluite moet wees, maar ons moet staan, en ek wil vra, en ek staan op my stand, dat ek stel voor dat 'n 50% afslag in beginsel goedgekeur word, maar ek wil dan die bewyse kry, wat kan hierdie munisipaliteit, in watter regulasie, wil ek sê, waar het ons gefouteer, en wat kan wat noem mense, die gevolg gewees op so op besluit? Want ek meen, ons kan seker goed, ons kan het volgende jaar nog altyd die punte begin. Maar ons moet seker goed dit afhandel, en ek sê nog altyd, ek leer uit my foute uit. Dis hoe ek sterker word.
Die speaker, as ek maar net kan noem, en ek dink die rede van dit, ek dink dit is met 'n spesifieke rede dalk ingebring in die regulasie, want jy moet in gedagte hou, bouregulasies verander van tyd tot tyd, en as ek byvoorbeeld 'n bouplan sou gaan laat goedkeur het, met sekere goed daaraan verwys, kan dit wees dat oor 'n jaar kan sekere goed wat vervat is dan in daai bouplan wat ingedien word, dalk nie meer wettig is in terme van nuwe wetgewing en regulasie daar volgens. En ek dink dis hoekom daar 'n tydperk gekoppel word aan dit. Ek kan nie, as dit goedgekeur is en ek begin bou, kan ek nie sê dis nou onwettig nie, want dit het binne 'n tydperk plaasgevind. Maar as ek oor 'n jaar kom en ek begin dan bou, en jy gebruik dieselfde plan wat goedgekeur is dit nou onderhewig aan nuwe wetgewing wat uitgevaardig is. En ek dink dit is hoekom basies daai tipe van goed in wetgewing ingebou is met 'n doel. Ek wil dis nie wat ons bepaal nie, maar ek weet wetgewing verander deurlopend. En is om te verseker indien so 'n plan te oud raak, dat die ou op die ou voorwaardes en alles nog steeds kan aangaan, maar dan moet hy voldoen aan die nuwe bouregulasies en wetgewing van toepassing. En ek dink dis maar die enigste rede hoekom daar 'n tydperk verskil word binne dit om dit dan te kan hanteer.
Net 'n laaste inset, voorsitter, ek meen ons, as mens tot kyk, as ons net, as raad net, hoe noem ons dit nou, realisties. Ons het nou vanoggend gepraat oor entrepreneurs, en hoe ons mense moet bemagtig, hoe mense aan die hand moet vat, hoe ons moet help. Ek gaan nie terug na waar die persoon bly nie, maar die persoon kom uit 'n gemeenskap uit, in Elim. En dit is ook, wat ek weer sê, nie een van die mense wat huise daar gebou het al, en ek sê miskien, die ding in Anist in dieselfde geval, die mense kry nie hulp nie, want dit is 'n private grond, en dit is bloedgeld, R20.000, dis nie R2.000 nie. En waar ons kan help om iets te doen, sê ek nog altyd, moet ons iets doen om mense te bemagtig, om mense te help. En as ons buite ons veld is, dan is dit, ek wil net die oor in my mind hê, dat ons nie, jy weet, net 'n besluit neem nie, dan moet daar herwaar wees, wat is die gevolge dan as ons so 50% altyd as iemand 'n huis het, en ek het nou dat weer gesê in die geval hieronder, om mense die menswaardigheid te gee, moet iemand opstaan soggens uit 'n huis, uit 'n geboude huis, dis waarvan hy kan operate, hy en sy vrou en sy kinders, waarvan hy kan werk, as jy nie 'n huis het nie, omdat ons, ja, oké. Dis al wat ek wil vra.
Burgemeester, ons is nie een verskil met jou nie. Ons het nou al 'n hele paar gevalle gehad vandag op Mariete wat ons gesê het ons gaan help. So ek dink nie dis die storie nie, maar ek dink in hierdie geval is ons vas met wetgewing. So wil jy ek moet dit vir jou terugverwys na die komitee toe dat hulle die redes gaan kry en die agtergrond gaan kry en dit vir jou voorlê. Is dit die beter antwoord? En dan vat jy dit daarvandaan. Baie dankie Marius, het jy hom so? Raadslid Jantjies?
Ek wil daarom net vir die burgemeester ook sê, Hannes het sy vraag beantwoord. Hannes het gesê, hy het gevra, wat is die gevolge as ons die man 50% discount gee, en Hannes het gesê, dan moet ons as raadslede die ander 50% betaal. Dit is so makkelijk soos daai, dit is wat die wetgewing ongelukkig sê. En ek meen, ons het elke dag mense wat voor ons deur staan, met die oorpy wat ons kry, kan ons nooit nog daai opbetaal nie. So dit is eintlik maar die realiteit. Dis nie, laat ons nie die man wil help nie, en hy het begin die recht te sê, laat ons met elke saak op Mariete behandel. Nou die een wil ons graag, maar ons word verbind deur wetgewing, en dit is eintlik die regulasie. En dit is maar die
4.1 onwetlike implikasies. 4.1 sê, niemand mag 'n gebou ten opsigte waarvan planne en spesifikasies ingevolge hierdie wet opgestel en voorgelê moet word sonder die voorafgestelde skriftelike goedkeuring van die betrokke plaaslike bestuur nie. Daar was planne gedien, hy het goedkeuring gekry van die munisipaliteit.
Blackie, wil jy iets byvoeg?
Ja. Ek hoor wat die burgemeester sê en ons moet help waar ons kan in die raad het sekere besluitnemingsbevoegdhede solank dit binne wetgewing is. Die oomblik as ons buite die wetgewing gaan, ongeag die omstandighede en die kom ons help en so aan, is buitekant wetgewing is onreëlmatig. En wanneer mens kyk na onreëlmatighede, dan is daar twee dinge waar mens kyk. Die een was daar nalatigheid gewees, en tweedens was daar doelbewus gewees. Nou, as die raad 'n besluit neem buitekant daardie regulasie, is dit doelbewus. Dit is onmiddellik onreëlmatig en die gevolge is die raadslede moet daai verlies dra. Want dit was 'n doelbewuste besluit deur die raad. Dit is ongelukkig, ek verstaan die simpatie rondom die hele geval, maar ons kan nie anders doen nie. Wetgewing, en daar is soos jy sê, dis 'n regulasie. Jy kan net afwyk as jy nasionale tesourie se goedkeuring kry wat hulle nie gee nie. So ons moet dit net in gedagte hou. Dankie.
Dankie Blackie, ons het hom so, maar ons het ons nou genotuleer wat ons gaan doen, Marius. Dankie tog.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Then we can move to item 1129, Fines and Levies Approval, National Building Regulations and Building Standards Act. And I think the purpose of this item to council is the approval of the imposed fines and levies applicable to the National Building Regulations. And I think according to this, there was also a process that we had to follow via the approval of the Magistrate Court, in terms of these fines that we want to impose, and then it's actually the management recommendation from the infrastructure service that management management's recommendation be accepted, and that's that the fines and levies been approved for contraventions of the National Building Regulations.
Dankie CFO. Enige debat? Is dit unanimous? Almal knik kop, baie dankie.
Then we can move to item 1130, full sweeping electricity prepaid meter audit and TID token ID rollover. The purpose of the report to present to the committee the scope of work involved in the full sweeping meter audit and TID rollover of all prepaid meters. As we all know, in terms of the budget, there was an amount approved to do a meter audit and verification, and to ensure that all the prepaid meters are correctly registered and linked to the correct property, and that's what they're currently doing. So the recommendation from the Infrastructure Services Committee is that management recommendation be accepted, and that the committee takes note of the public participation process that has already been started in this regard.
Commentare? Ja.
Again, I would just like to note...
Sy was eerste.
Die mense wat die meters verander het, is van Pretoria. Engels sprekend, dat is goed wat Engels sprekend. Geen een wat Afrikaans praat. So ons mense het eintlik die ding verstaan nie. En dit het nou 'n probleem geword. Want van die mense tokens wat hulle nog moes indruk in hulle bokse, en hulle weet nie, hulle het nou dit verloor. Daar's 'n pensionaris wat nou oor die R100 mee sit. Sy kan dit ook nie indruk nie. En hoe meer ons vir die mense verduidelik dat dit was nie ons prosesse nie, maar ek voel as dit so iets weer moet gebeur, moet die munisipaliteit kennis dra. Al moet dit 'n EPWP werker wees wat saamgaan om te assist, sal dit goed wees, want die mense verstaan nou nie eintlik regtig wat dit aangegaan nie. Dis maar al wat ek rondom die kwessie wil sê, asseblief.
Dieselfde, ek wil net aanvoeg by dit is dat die kommunikasie was baie swak. En dit is een van die grootste probleme wat baie kere die ongelukkigheid binne ons gemeenskappe laat ontstaan, speaker. En dieselfde ding wat nou gebeur met die geyser projek. Geen kommunikasie nie, geen inligting was deurgegee vir die gemeenskap wanneer sulke tipe goed gaan gebeur nie. Ek dink departemente weet mos daarom 'n lang tyd voor die tyd wanneer 'n projek geïmplementeer gaan word binne in 'n spesifieke area. Dat ons kan kommunikeer met die mense en sodat die mense ingelig kan wees as gevolg van dit. So ek dink ons kommunikasie moet baie beter wees wanneer ons begin implementeer binne in gemeenskappe. Ons sê ons wil graag die dienste hê, maar net die kommunikasieproses moet baie duideliker deurkom. Baie dankie Speaker.
Ja, ek dink baie van die ongelukkigheid and I don't think we must allow this any longer to happen. Whether it's a national project, it's the same one with the Gazes project. We must make sure that we make use of local contractors and labor. There's many people within this one, the electricity meter one. The people here from Joburg, I think, and people complain they can't speak Afrikaans. And majority is Afrikaans speaking people here. So we need to engage with all national, provincial government. Whenever there's a job opportunity in the local municipality, because this is stirring the things between people here. We have to face on ground level this. The same with the geezers, there's outside contractors that got this job after how many years now? And it's only one local contractor that received a contract there, a subcontract. But the money is flowing out. We need to address and to stop these things. We are glad with any help or project coming from national or provincial, but let we employ local people. Thank you.
Jy glimlag so, lyk my jy wil iets sê.
Chairperson, Speaker, ja, miskien net in opsigte van die solar geysers. Die installasie van die solar geysers is 'n program van die Nasionale Departement van Energie en hulle het nasionaal 'n tender uitgesit vir plaaslike en Suid-Afrikaners om die installasie te doen. Ongelukkig as ons nie verantwoordelik vir die supply chain prosesse nie, want dit word nasionaal hanteer. Wat ons wel vir hulle gesê het, is dat by die installasie moet daar ook voorsiening gemaak word vir plaaslike kontrakteurs en ook vir die assistent installasiekontrakteurs. 20 studente word tans opgelei plaaslik uit ons eie area wat deel vorm van die installasieproses en dan die plaaslike kontrakteur. Dis iets wat ons van behuising se kantoor self gedryf het om ons plaaslike mense ook 'n geleentheid te kry om dit deur te sit. Maar ongelukkig moet die raad ook verstaan, sekere prosesse wat van nasionaal af gedryf word, is nie binne ons bevoegdheid as munisipaliteit, waar ons vir hulle voorskriftelik kan wees ten opsigte van hulle supply chain regulasies en uitvoering van projekte nie, voorstel.
Dankie meneer Jacob.
Okay.
Speaker, ek verstaan wat meneer Dennis sê, ek verstaan ook wat die burgemeester sê, maar ons het dit 'n paar tyd terug goedgekeur dat plaaslike entrepreneurs of plaaslike mense van ons dorp moet eerste voorreg kry of voorkeur kry om te werk. En op die huidige oomblik dink ek is die skills. Ons as die munisipaliteit doen nie genoeg vir ons gemeenskap om vir hulle die skills te gee of 'n projek af te laat kom, want ons het ook met mense wat kiesers kan implementeer, maar hulle het nie die nodige papiere nie. So voor die projek uitgekom het, dink ek moes ons 'n advertensie uitgesit het of iemand gekrediteerde plek gekry het om ons mense ten minste te empower. Dis maar al wat ek wil sê en ek dink dit was so gedoen nie.
Speaker, thank you for the opportunity again to take the mic. I have so many items today on this council agenda. Speaker, we note the communication. speaks about the leaking bucket, where there's theft of electricity theft, Mayor. This is one of those areas. It is common practice. We will also publish a press release now with regards to this audit. It is common practice that the communication is kept until the last minute. This item has been discussed at length at the Infrastructure Portfolio Committee meeting before it started, so that also the ward committees, my portfolio head is sitting next to me, so that they can be informed it was discussed. The reason we use external people is because of the sensitive nature of this audit. You will remember that sometimes politicians tamper with meters and sometimes municipal officials tamper with meters, that there's no victimization of the people that is doing the audit and that is uncovering irregularities, fraud and corruption in the municipality. So taking that into consideration, it was open on public tender, so anybody could have, whether it was a company that was local, but we also don't let our own staff do this audits. It needs to be independent. That there's two parts of this audit. The one is the TID rollover, making sure that the meters works after 2024, and the other one is fixing the leaking bucket, the mandate that the mayor has also told us. If there is any losses in electricity, we need to ensure that we are doing what we need to do from a technical perspective, and we take note of the communication concerns and especially Afrikaans, which we will address with the contractor.
Mr. Speaker, just to add on, we dealt with the item earlier, the regulations, the Preference Procurement Act, regulations that was promulgated by the minister that was declared unlawfully. It's exactly what we're talking about now. As much as we want to incorporate our local people, you cannot exclude other people to participate in the tender process, and that's why it was declared unlawful. That specific item in the regulation where it made reference that you only can use local people, or you can only make use of a certain category of suppliers. But I think what is most important, if we do it within the guidelines and directive of the supply chain regulation, because it should be fair, transparent to everybody to participate. And I think that's what we said for us, maybe to come to the party, to assist and to see how we can empower our own internal small SMEs, local business, is actually through joint venture, maybe what Mr. Michael Dennis already mentioned as well, where we try to bring people on board together with the main contractor or service provider. But unfortunately, this is the thing that was declared by the Constitutional Court as unlawful, that whole regulation. And that's why we brought it to council. So we just need to be careful. As much as we want to do it, we still need to do it within the framework of that. There are ways and means how we can incorporate them and how we can capacitate them through joint venture or something like that. But it's important that we still follow the SEM processes as well in this regard.
Inputs, comments? Communication will always be a problem, two-way communication. In this regard, it's a different angle. Maybe we could have said, if we knew why, then we could have handled some of the queries better. But that's communication. Meneer Lou, jy sê jong man, onthou ons is nog nie in die paradys nie, ons is nog op aarde.
Yeah, I think we shouldn't follow the linear approach. We should focus more on a transactional approach, Speaker.
Speaker, it's only for noting, Speaker. Speaker, it's only for noting.
Short term, 11:31, sorry. Yeah. So approval of a short-term animal intervention strategy, and I think that is. Okay, this one. We skip this one. Okay. Okay. 32 is afgehaal. Okay, this is 31.
31.
Ja.
Hy is ook afgehaal.
Is hy ook afgehaal?
Ja.
Also being withdrawn. And then we will then move to item 1133. The feedback to present to council with a feedback report on the success and challenges of the past summer holiday based on the seasonal readiness plan, which includes the feedback on of the relevant service applicable for the management recommendation is that the feedback report on the summer seasonal report be noted and referred to council for acceptance.
Thank you. I guess you've noted.
We take a note, Speaker, on that regard, whatever readiness might be, but it's always be ready when you are in the council, but outside is a problem. That we're sitting with. That's the problem.
Carry on.
Speaker, 1134 is also withdrawn, 1135 as well. Then we move to item 1136, Cape Agulhas Municipality, the draft safety plan, February 2022. And it's also to present to council the draft safety plan, which focuses on integrated approaches, initiatives, which will reduce safety risks and situations. The plan formulates mitigation response, which is a continuous process for the municipal area. And then the recommendation is that the committee take note of the draft safety plan. Yeah, to be approved and implemented, yeah.
Committee take note of the draft safety plan and be submitted to council for consideration and approval.
Speaker, we must just also take cognizance that the draft safety plan has to be advertised for public comment as well.
Okay, take note of that as well. So are we unanimous? Thank you. Carry on.
Speaker, then 11.37 is also withdrawn, and then we move to item 11.38, the review of the disaster management plan. It's also to present to council the review disaster plan for each municipal area. And then is that the disaster management plan for 2022 be approved, and recommendation from the management services committee is that the committee take note of the disaster plan and be submitted for consideration and approval by council.
Any input? Any comments? Unanimous? Thank you. Carry on.
Then item 11.39, the request for approval of annual report on section 50 of the Disaster Management Act. The purpose of the report is to present the annual report to council for approval to comply with section 50 of the Disaster Management Act. Section 50 of the Disaster Management Act requires that the report must be submitted annually to the municipal council regarding the Disaster Management Centre, on its activities during the year, the results, center monitoring, disasters that occurred during the year, the classification, magnitude and severity of these disasters. So there's quite a lot that we need to attend to. And I think what they did was actually to prepare a report in terms of the fire, the rain, the flooding that happened in the area. And then also the humanitarian relief, the COVID lockdown regulations. And the report is actually then that the report be presented on terms of section 50 of the Disaster Management Act for approval by council, and that has also been the recommendation from the Management Services Committee.
Thank you, councillors. In agreement?
We principally agree, Speaker, with that regard. I think myself and also Councillor Newood, serving on a district, is a serious concern when you've got maybe people that are on standby in the fire department. When they get whatever in the vicinity where maybe the concern is, how long will they take even for them to even get there? Because they're not in the fire department themselves. They need to get them home From there, they must get ready, and the fire is already. That's a problem that we're sitting with. Even if there's other means and ways that we can try maybe and address this issue, I think let us try and address this issue. Budget-wise, what need to happen in that regard, regarding even the seasonal, when the fire also even occurred in different areas. It's a problem because the other incident occurred even last night or maybe this morning. When they reach maybe the destination, they cannot even help them. The strike has been banned already. So the time that they spend from where they stay is a time maybe it's a problem that we're sitting with. Unless maybe we train people within the squatter camp, informal settlement, put some pipe that might be available. When such an incident it may be okay, then they will know exactly what to address this issue of fire. And also the issue of Oak Camp, it come a long way. I don't know when are we going to be really say serious, whatever that will happen. It was been identified by former president in 2010. So we are going to act. But those are not animals that are residing there. It's the people that we will take off. I don't want to find maybe ourselves maybe again. We also experienced the same thing, unrest that was happening, that happened maybe even last week. So I'm raising that concern. Let us address the issue as it is and also be on par, inform the community what might be the current status is.
Yeah, Speaker, I know a couple of years ago the district municipality issued smoke detectors to the informal settlement. I don't know what happened to that. I don't know if they used it. It was a smoke detector. When it starts, then they can inform the fire department. But if there are issues with the fire department, I would like to have that in writing, as like tomorrow, because I've got a meeting on Monday morning, 10 o'clock, with the chairperson of that portfolio committee. Okay. Yeah, that's my earphones address.
Okay, thank you. Is it unanimous?
Yeah, just one last comment is, last night we also had a fire and at around 1:30 it happened. And when the fire department came there, the place was already burned to the ground. So I definitely think also the structures that people are using is a challenge, because the structures are made of plastic, of tin foil, some of these, so that also adds to the fire. So I definitely agree with what Councillor Mokotwana is saying, that obviously there needs to be education regarding fire and how to fight it. But I think we need to also invest in future in fire hydrants. That is placed there, which makes it easier for when a fire comes out. But and also I've mentioned that we need to start looking at other materials used for informal housing. And there are so many options. There's a program called the Shack Builder that you can actually go and see. Mr. Quinton Adams is driving that project nationally, where they are going around and putting up proper structures. And I definitely think these are things that we need to start looking at, because the options are there are alternatives, but it's not being taken seriously, Speaker.
Ja, ek gaan net
Speaker, nee, ek neem kennis. Ons het al gesprekke gehad met die meneer wat die raadslid na verwys. Ons wil reeds kyk met die beplanning van Zwelitsha en wat ons wil in plek sit. Watter alternatiewe ons daar kan stel, het sy topstrukture en dan ook die voorstel van die burgemeester waar hy sê dat ons net basies 'n frame moontlik kan beskikbaar stel en dan die begunstigde die res self. Asla het byvoorbeeld al so 'n voorstel gemaak. So dit is deel van die idees wat ons al reeds aan dink om innoverend te wees ten opsigte van wat ons wil doen in die informele areas. En ek stem met die raadslid saam. Ons moet kyk na innoverende idees. Met die hulp van PEP het ons ook in al die informele areas en ons het ook vir ODM brandbeheer gekry. U sal onthou in verlede jaar se verslag van PEP was daar opleiding gewees aan die inwoners van al die informele areas om hoe om 'n vuur te blus en ons het Reinhard se samewerking daar gehad. Ek dink dit is 'n idee wat ons aaneenlopend dalk weer moet na gaan kyk en net weer die geleentheid dalk skep vir so 'n geleentheid waar ons dalk ook ons gemeenskappe ten opsigte van brandbestryding kan kapasiteer en dalk kan help. Want dit is so dat die plaaslike brandweer dalk weens redes nie gou genoeg by 'n insident kan kom nie, maar dan moet ons ook probeer om proaktief te wees en om ons gemeenskappe self te basies te mobiliseer. So wanneer daar 'n insident is dat hulle dan onmiddellik met die nodige ondervinding en skill wat hulle dan optel wat ons vir hulle kan gee, onmiddellik ook kan respond ten opsigte van 'n probleem wat daar bestaan. Dankie Spreker.
Baie duidelik is die hoe.
Ek is net die laaste punt, Spreker. Ek sal dit opneem met die departement van brandweer. Ek wil ook net sê, jy weet, elke keer wanneer ons informele areas begin opsit en inrig, dan is die paaie so nou dat die brandweer nie daar kan kom om by die huise te kom nie. So wanneer 'n beplanning gedoen word om mense te skuif na 'n ander plek toe, dan moet julle daai departement kontak. Ek sal in elk geval dit maandag opneem met die portfolio hoof van daai departement.
Ambulance.
Spreker, dankie. Ek dink ek stem saam met raadsheer Nieuwoud in terme van die paaie wat so nou is. Maar ons moet dan ook kyk na ander alternatiewe. Die fire hydrants is 'n alternatief wat raadslid Louna verwys word. In Napier byvoorbeeld wil ons graag kyk of ons 'n fire trailer kan aanskaf. Wat water kan vat en sodat dit makliker kan wees om dit op te hoek en na toneel te kan vat. So ons moet kyk na die innovative ways of how to deal with certain matters. En ek dink dat ons as raad en ook ODM moet kyk hoe ons sulke tipe idees kan befonds. Dankie.
Kan hulle dit van die ambulance.
Die raadspunt op
ja, ek wil net maar Spreker, ek wil net vra die punt, ons het nou die naweek, vorige naweek 'n ramp gehad en ons het geen ambulans en ek kan, hier is net een ambulans wat die hele area moet dek en dit was, ons weet hoe dit gegaan het, of mense moes met voertuie soos venne aangery geword. So as u miskien daai punt sy kan aanhaal, wie is dit nou?
Wat ek sal doen is as
by die distrikmunisipaliteit.
Die verteenwoordiger op die provinsie is die burgemeester van die ODM.
Okay.
Maar ek sal
as u dit onder sy aandag kan bring, asseblief, dankie meneer.
Spreker, jammer as ek net in kan kom maar by raadslid Martinez se kwessie. Ons weet dat daar sit een ambulans in die hele area. Maar wat departement van gesondheid wel gedoen het, ek dink dat het begin 2 jaar gelede daarmee, maar as gevolg van COVID, toen moes hulle dit nou weer terughou, is deur middel van 'n emergency first aid responder program. Net om hulle te assist, sodat hulle wil in elke dorp wil hulle mense oplei, sodat as daar 'n noodsituasie is, dat daai persone kan help. Soos byvoorbeeld CPR, ook deur middel van wonde, mense wat gebrand het en daai tipe van ding. So hulle het begin met daai program, maar dit was gestop as gevolg van COVID. Maar hulle is nou weer besig met die proses. Ek wil juist met die raadslid gesels sodat ons veral Elim en Arniston kan assist om daai program by hulle ook te loods. Dankie.
Die bestuursaanbeveling aanvaar, the recommendation management services, is it unanimous? Kan ons dit aanvaar? Silence is consent.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Then we can move to item 11.40, deferred ownership pilot housing project, Molpark. I think it's where the municipality have received 10 million rand for development in accordance with the deferred ownership model. I know there will be 60 units as the first phase in the area or site F in Bredasdorp, of which 30 units will be sold in terms of the program, and then other 30 will be made available for rental up to a maximum of 3 years, of which then the tenant will have the option to purchase. But I think the purpose of this report is actually to recommend to Council the housing typologies for approval, inclusive the related cost for each typology. So if I can maybe just move into the management recommendation, is that Council approve the typologies as presented, the 42 square meter at the selling price of 467,635.93 cents, VAT inclusive, and the other one is the 58 square meter at the selling price of 590,983. So the recommendation from the Management Services Committee is that Council the committee take note of the above mentioned typologies and be submitted then for approval as per the recommendation made.
Dat is de laatste dag. In de maand is het op.
Ja.
Dus maar, dus dat is de laatste dag. Als het restje beneden is,
daar kan gee. Dit is so die implementeerder het bevestig, maar tussen hulle self die MEC se kantoor en die direkteur van Human Settlements was daar uitstaande kwessies wat hulle wil uitsorteer met die implementeerder. Een van die groot dinge is die MEC wil baie graag die area kom besoek en 'n short turning kom doen, en dan wou hy graag hy gehad het die implementeerder moet ook op terrein wees, en dan van provinsie se kant af is hulle besig om 'n groot bord vir op die site basis te design en dit op die site op te bring sodat die burgerinkomste groep dat die soos die Engelsman sê, the interest within the community can be drawn to the project. So dit is die delay, en dan ook natuurlijk die finale raadsbesluit ten opsigte van die projek. Die behuisingskomitee het al die projek geondersteun. Die portfolio komitee het die item verwys na die raadsvergadering van vandag, voorsitter.
Raadseer Jantjies, ek het eintlik gedink jy wil vir ons ete reël terwyl jy nou gaan om te gaan kyk na die perseel. Ek doen dit vir 6:15, want ek teen hierdie tempo dink ek gaan ons nog lank hier sit. Kan ons raadslede kan ons hierdie bestuursaanbeveling aanvaar? Can we accept it? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Then we move to item 11.41, progress report, Napier informal settlements entrance upgrade. The purpose of the report, People's Environment Planning was appointed by the Department of Human Settlements to complete certain milestones, the establishment of the informal settlement committees and enumeration process. But part of their social contribution, the People's Planning Environment, there was 100,000 that they made available towards the municipality for the upgrade of the Napier informal settlement entrance. And the agreement was that the municipality will support the program and other technical support like transport and to this project. And I think the management recommendation is for council to take cognizance of the PEP and Human Settlement initiative towards the upgrade of the entrance present to of the Napier informal settlement. And then the recommendation, management services, that the committee take note of the P and Human Settlements initiative and be submitted to council then for approval.
Enige kommentaar? Aanvaar. Eenparig, meneer Dennis.
Speaker, net 'n kommentaar van Human Settlement se kant af, nou nie management services nie. Ek wil net vir my kollegas by tegniese dienste bedank dat hulle nou saam met ons en die implementeerder PEP gewerk het om 'n verskil te maak aan die entrance by die Napier informele area. Ek dink die raadslid en die raadslede en self die gemeenskap kan onmiddellik sien wat 'n verandering daar plaasgevind het saam met die gemeenskap natuurlik ten opsigte van Napier se informele gebied. Dankie.
Dankie, jy moet nou keer, jy moet nie te veel blomme uitdeel nie, dan wil hulle foto's ook op 'n bord hê dan. Dankie.
Speaker, I'd like to acknowledge the recognition, Speaker. Thank you.
Speaker, so if we then can proceed, item 1142 being withdrawn as well as 1143, and then we move to 1144. Just a moment. Impact Charter, and the purpose of the report is to submit the amended Municipal Public Accounts Committee Impact Charter to the Council for consideration and approval. And then the management recommendation is for Council to consider the amended Impact Charter for approval and implementation.
Enige gesprekvoering insette? Raadslid Jantjies, is jy gelukkig? Goed, kan ons dit so aanvaar? Dankie tog.
Speaker, then we can move to item 11.45, Impact Report to Council on the committee's activities for March. Well, as I in committee, okay, then we can move to item 11.46, External Audit Action Plan for 2021, Monthly Progress Report, and I think the purpose of the report is just the progress made with the implementation of the approved Auditor General's findings action plan, and then the management recommendations that Council consider and approve the progress report on the 2021 OPCAR action plan as at the end of March. And the detailed plan is attached in the annexures as from page 358 to 361.
Enige gesprek? Ek wil nie vir Blakkie wakker maak, Blakkie, wil jy iets byvoeg? Hier nog hier. Ja, okay. Enige kommentaar, enige vrae, enige insette? Geen?
Speaker, then we can move to item 11.47, report on the establishment of ward committees. Is to inform the Cape Agulhas municipality about the newly established ward committees, and it's actually for notification. I think in the report it's also the detail and the people who were involved, in this whole process. And I think then the management recommendations that the results of the ward committee elections for the term 2021 up to 2026 be noted.
Almal kennis geneem? Neem tog asseblief kennis, raadslede, veral wijkraadslede, dat die verpligte opleiding will be done on the 23rd, Saturday 23rd at the Bradasdorp Park. 23rd. Thank you.
Ek mis Paul Valentine. Is hy nie uitstaan is vir die hoofdsekretêr is? Net 'n naam wat genoem is.
Paul reël dit. Hy het nie sy eie naam ingesit.
Maar hy kan dit bekom acknowledge.
Ja, ons moet.
Hy help baie.
I think then with your permission, Speaker, then we can move to item 11.48. Dit is die hierin van onbenutte gebou. Okay, so then that one is also withdrawn, my apology. Then we can move to the additional items that are submitted. 11.49 is to review the municipality spatial development framework, the long-term financial development plan, as well as the development of a capital expenditure framework through DBSA revenue enhancement support. So I think the Director Technical Services, I think with your permission, maybe you can just elaborate a little bit more on this initiative, because I think he deserves the credit for taking the municipality and trying to achieve more funding for it.
Speaker, with your permission, CFO is putting me on the spot again. When we submitted our draft budget through to province CFO, they noted that there were some items of master plans and SDF, and they then subsequently asked us that the Development Bank of South Africa, I'm dealing with them quite often on the asset care project that we are running at the municipality, and they said, would you like to make application for a grant instead of using our own funds for the update of the SDF? I've always been advocating for a capital expenditure framework for a 10-year capital plan linked with the SDF. And then they subsequently said that we could make application for 3 items. It's the capital expenditure framework, the long-term financial plan, and also the spatial development framework that will lead into the new IDP. So after this council meeting, myself, Sunel, and Tracy, we will be finalizing the application, the business plan. But similar to the previous DBSA grant, it needs to be approved by council. The wording of the resolution is articulated by the Development Bank of South Africa. We then mandate the MM to conclude the agreement, the MOU with the DBSA. The council does that, and we do the specimen signatures. But this one, very interestingly enough, there's a possibility, as opposed to them paying for the service providers, that they will make a financial grant contribution to the municipality, and it's anticipated in the range of about 4 million rand. So instead of using our own funds, it is still on our budget as CRR funds for the SDF. So we have 3 months. Tracy needs to commence by the 1st of July. It's very important. So we will just change the source of revenue should we be successful with the grant. And this is the first hurdle to be able to apply for the grant, is the council resolution. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I think it's just important that we just make amendments to the item as submitted, because initially the long-term financial plan was excluded, but like you've indicated, they're willing to bring that also as part of the funding.
We just ask that Marius take cognizance of that wherever there is CEF and SDF in the item itself, that the LTFP, the long-term financial plan, be included, not in recommendation, not in the resolution, but in the item itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments? I hasten to say thank you, sir. Job well done.
Speaker, then the last item, so one of the additional items is item 11.50, the review and amendment of budget-related policy, the asset management policy. And I think the reason why the policy, we bring it to council right now, we also, part of our current involvement in partnership with the DBSA is actually to looking at asset management improvement, especially in how to mitigate the impact of our aging infrastructure. That is also on the same principle what we just had discussion about with the DBSA. And I think one of the critical issues relating to the deliverables on the project is also to review your asset management policy as a cornerstone for them to proceed and to continue. And I think there was a service provider appointed within DBSA, an expert review the policy and to make sure that it aligned to our accounting policy normally disclosing the financial statements as well as the accounting standard directives issued from time to time by the Accounting Standard Board. So there was some recommendations made or omissions in the policy that we need to address based on the gaps identified, and the policy being updated accordingly to ensure completeness. And it is actually just in the management recommendations for council to consider approval of the amended asset management policy with in effect 1st July 2022. And then if council approves the recommendation 1, then that the mentioned policy be thoroughly workshop with councillors and senior management, as the case with our other policies as at the moment.
Eenparig. Dankie tog.
Ja, meneer Speaker, ek weet net nie die onafgehandelde sake, ek dink die lysie dink ek het heelwat verminder. Ek sien net daai item, die derde item op dit 1229 is 'n item wat reeds ingesluit was en wat die raad reeds nou gefinaliseer het. Maar dit is dan nog die items waar dit dan staan en ek dink ook is daar terugvoer gegee wat is die vordering in die verband. So ek weet nie of daar enige verdere vrae of insette dan is rondom dit.
63 wat 2021 die pad van PNB is seker klaar. En dan die 128 21 is ook ons nou vandag klaar.
Dan spreek die lysie dit vir kennisname. As ons net op datum maar ek hou daarvan dat ons al die uitstaande sake weet. Dit is lekker voor die hand liggend. Amptenaars kan onmiddellik sien wat er staat. En die amptenaar sal weet wanneer dit finaal afgaan.
Dankie burgemeester, nee, ek is eens daarmee. As daar enige vrae is op van hierdie onafgehandelde sake, dan is dit nou die tyd. Going, gone. Okay, nou is dit dringende sake hierdie een. Gaan jy aan by punt nummer 12. Daar sê.
Ja, Mr. Speaker, dan kan ons gaan na item 12 toe op die agenda, dringende sake deur die munisipale bestuurder. Ek dink daar's eintlik nie van my kant nie, behalwe ek dink dat wat die munisipale bestuurder reeds mee besig is, tesame met die burgemeester en met die prosesse en die aksies wat plaasvind die afgelope tyd. Ek neem aan, ek kan nie namens die MM praat nie, maar ek neem aan dit wat die raadslede en al die rolspelers wat betrokke was, glo ek is daar vordering. Maar ek neem aan, dit is half een van die aangeleenthede wat hoog op die agenda is, en ek dink wat die raad reeds gesê het wat verder hanteer sal word, maar anders is daar nie enigiets anders wat onder my aandag gebring is nie.
Dankie, hy het nou ingekom so as
Dan punt nommer 13 oorweging van mosies. Sover my kennis trek is daar nie enige wat ingedien is nie. Dan item 14 oorweging kennisgewing van vrae. Ek is ook nie bewus van enigiets in die verband nie. En dan is dit item 15 oorweging van dringende mosies. Daar is ook geen ontvang nie. En dan item 16 die verwysing verslag deur die munisipale bestuur oor die uitvoering van raadsbesluite. Dis die aangeleentheid wat ons 'n bietjie gespring het, maar wat ons hanteer het. En dan item 17 is dan die items wat in komitee en vertroulik hanteer sal word dan nou.
Dankie CFO MM, welkom terug. Punt 14, enige dringende sake deur die munisipale bestuurder wat jy onder ons aandag wil bring?
Ja, misschien dringende aanvraag na die interaksie met die departement.
My interaksie met die departement van rampbestuur in die provinsie. Hulle kyk nou juist hoe hulle meer hulpbronne beskikbaar kan maak van provinsie se kant af. Ons het basies net vir hulle die verslag aangestuur dat hulle weet hoeveel mense is, wat dit is. Persoon kan nie regtig commitments gemaak het op homself nie, maar hy is nou terug Kaapstad toe, so ons sal voor die einde van die dag sal ons nou aanduiding kry. Die South African Human Rights Commission is also busy with the farmers and also some of the business owners currently in Nelson Mandela Hall. So it seems there's significant progress that has happened over the last 2 days, and it seems that we can make a breakthrough. The one thing that the communities actually, they sat down and counted the days, and the 7 days expires today in terms of that memorandum. So I just want to call on specifically the directors and all the relevant officials. We've got all the information to report back on the matters raised in the memo. So hulle wil graag hê ons vanmiddag 4 uur na die groep van die gemeenskap leiers net terugvoering gee. Want ek glo as ons die terugvoering wat ons kan gee, ons het al die inligting is redelik positief. So ek glo na vanmiddag het hulle nie geen ander, hoe sal ek sê, ekskuus meer asof om die mense terug te laat hier. So het klink of ons na vanmiddag, okay, hoopvol 'n goeie deurbraak kan maak. So I was just going to call on all the directors to be available at 4 o'clock. We're meeting the leadership of the community at 4 o'clock this afternoon, where we are going to give the feedback, and the feedback seems to be quite positive already. So
baie dankie MM, dankie CFO vir jou instaan, waardeer. Dan as daar niemand is wat nog 'n finale woord wil inkry nie, dan verdaag ons die vergadering. Baie dankie vir julle insette, vir die geduld, vir die spontane reaksies, en dat dit in sulke goeie gees gebeur het, is altyd wonderlik. Baie dankie, en ja, dit sal ek aankondig, maar ons gaan nou eers die mense uitjaag. Raadsheer Jantjies? Ons gaan hierna in komitee, ons gaan eers 'n breek vat, maar Willem van Sail, sal jy net seker maak dat is jy daarmee besig. Dankie ook aan almal wat ingeluister het, en goeiemôre aan almal.